stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Virginia started projectile vomiting at 5 o'clock this afternoon, so I excused her. Has anybody heard from Mike?
Yep.
He's coming. Oh, all right.
You missed the Pledge of Allegiance. That's terrible.
Sorry about that.
Does anyone, a board member, have any statements about the resolution regarding a declaration of future intent relative to a moratoria and any future amendments or updates to the wind farm local law?
Well, question was, do we need it?
I was just asked that question. No, we do not need it. It's a statement of intent.
One of the residents, Jude Lemke, said that it may give Black Oak a stronger case if we do try to change something later. If we pass this and say, well, we don't really intend to, and then we do it later, then they would have, Black Oak would have a stronger case to object to any changes.
I think you all received that letter.
I guess my comment would be, I'm not sure that it has significant plus value, and I do see some possible negative value, so my likely feeling would be not to do it at this time.
Okay, we'll, since Dan Walker's just arrived, we'll go on to the second item on the agenda, the road use agreement with Black Oak Wind Farm. That's approving road use agreement and general roadway restorative plan in cooperation with Tompkins County. We've had this before us for a few weeks. And what this is a general agreement that there has to be a road use agreement. So I'm going to move that we approve the road use agreement and general roadway restorative plan in cooperation with Tompkins County. Whereas the town's wind farm law requires, as part of the permit review process, that adequate roadway protection and restorative obligations be met by the developer to restore, replace, or otherwise ensure the viability of public highways used, affected, or altered during the project construction phase and future construction phases. And the requirements therefore are set forth in Article 4, Section 16, and address traffic, road condition, roadway impacts, roadway remediation, and like issues by regulating specifically traffic routes, traffic controls, and roadway remediation. And whereas the seeker environmental impact statement and, as applicable, the supplemental environmental impact statement, once and if adopted, have implemented a mitigation plan more specifically requiring a road use agreement to securize and define the roadway obligations of the developer so as to protect the town's roadway infrastructure, guarantee its maintenance and restoration, and to otherwise affect mitigation of potential roadway impacts. And whereas a road use agreement, RUA, has been developed in a draft but now near final form, and whereas the same addresses obligations of developer for various types of roadway charges and restoration obligations as based upon the current condition and structural integrity of the roadway, the need to upgrade or change the road, the need for ongoing maintenance during project construction phases, and the need to repair and restore and resurfacing or rebuild of the base and subbase of the roadway, and whereas part of the highway system to be utilized by the developer includes Tompkins County public highways, and the town has endeavored to coordinate with the county to the extent possible, given that the county has a road use law and the town does not, to ensure that the roadways are built and restored in one coordinated process to ensure proper oversight, save costs, and minimize disruption to road usage. And whereas the town attorney and special town counsel for the wind farm seeker review have reviewed the road use agreement as drafted and have generally approved the same, and whereas subject to minor amendments to calculate the roadway reconstruction costs payable by the developer, the county, and town relative to a whole road reconstruction and resurfacing project at project completion in accord with the roadway plan developed by the county to be implemented by and for the town among and along with other goals through the RUA and all the town's costs not to exceed X amount of dollars. The town board wishes to move forward and approve the RUA, and whereas upon due consideration and deliberation thereupon by the town board of the town of Enfield, be it resolved as follows. The URA is submitted to this meeting, be and hereby is approved and adopted in its general form. The town supervisor, be and hereby is authorized to sign and execute the same for and in the name of and on behalf of the town once and after the final changes are made to the form of such agreement to implement the developer county town restoration plan in language and a form as approved by the town attorney and the town highway superintendent. Could I get a second?
Second.
Now, Mike, you had a question about penalties?
Well, the first question I have is, what road use agreement are we talking about? Because we have two on the table, and the one that came with the agenda today from the website was not the one that I thought we were actually considering to approve.
Okay. I have no other identifying papers except the number of pages and
Well,
a hard copy.
I have one here that's 22 pages,
Yeah,
and I have one here that's 4 pages.
right.
I
Are
have
we-
3 of them.
Then he's got even more.
You've got
I've got one that just has 4.
2,
I think
No,
that's
it's just-
that's probably my 4-page one, right?
right,
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
print on both sides.
Which was the one that came with the agenda today, that was on the website.
Yes, Sue would have done that, I don't know. But
That's
she
the
would
one
have
that
put on
Sue
there.
sent, right, yeah,
Could be.
okay.
There was Dan's version and there was Guy's version.
Yes,
of
And
it.
this, Dan, this is your version?
Yes.
Yeah.
But what we're approving is Guy's version of this,
Yes.
correct?
yes,
That was
that's
my-
what
that
I'm
was my
putting
understanding.
forward to consider. As we've stated in previous meetings, we really do like Dan's version, but the fact of the matter is, since we do not have a road use law in the town of Enfield, there's no underpinnings to the shorter agreement, and Guy's longer agreement gives the underpinnings for enforcement.
Well, what if I could ask Dan a few questions? about Guy's plan then, if that's possible.
We're here for discussion prior to the vote.
We had talked, I think it was the last meeting, 6/8/16, about how to deal with the idea of damage to the roads if we have to have periodic repair of the turbines during the course of their lifespan, yeah. Is that covered in here?
If you will look at the decommissioning plan, you will see it clearly stated in there.
So we don't want that covered in the road use plan. We want
It's
it-
covered in another agreement that we have to have prior to permitting.
Okay, should we talk about the decommissioning plan in context with this then, or how should we deal with that?
There's a motion on the floor. We have to discuss the motion on the floor.
Well, that's actually what I'm trying to discuss right now, is how we deal with repairs to the road, which seems to go along with the road use agreement at some point in the future, and also how we deal with repairs to the road at the end time, and how we actually, talking about repairs to the road now, before anything is in place and before the turbine's in place, we actually have some leverage with the company that installs the generators. After everything's done and it's time to decommission, we don't have any leverage anymore, particularly to get that road fixed, unless we have a plan in place that says we do have leverage. So, to me, it's kind of a, well, you gotta have A before you get B, but you gotta have B to make A work too. So I'm wondering how we should deal with that. I'm not particularly comfortable with the decommissioning plan as it is written, so I certainly would have some questions about the decommissioning plan as well. But to me, the road use agreement should cover damage to the road and repairs to the road at whatever point in time that has to happen. At least that's what seems sensible to me.
And you don't think that the agreement states that?
Well, I was
As
just asking
put forth
Dan,
by
if
our
it- I
lawyer.
was just asking Dan if it did state it.
Okay. The main reason, the biggest potential damage to the roads are gonna be caused by the construction traffic during the initial construction.
Right.
Because that's when all the new materials are coming in, all the building materials, all the foundation building materials.
Right, right.
Under the decommissioning, or say a maintenance plan, say a turbine needed to be replaced.
Right,
You wouldn't probably have a foundation or a tower to rebuild, but you may be bringing in one heavy piece of equipment and some cranes to replace the turbine or blades or
right,
whatever.
right,
That would not generate the level of impact on the road
right.
that the whole project construction would
Right.
make.
That makes sense.
It is, for example, the county's road use law basically is based around 1,000 trips of 30 tons or 30 tons. You probably would not have that if you were, you might have 20 trips
Right.
to come in and replace a turbine.
Right,
So the impact on the road wouldn't be so great.
right,
And you probably, even during decommissioning, would not reach the level of the trigger point,
Probably not.
probably.
Because because the bulk of the load, yes, you'd have some very heavy equipment coming in, but that equipment is actually less of an impact on the road because it's on a bigger vehicle. It meets the state highway regulations. It's all the gravel and all the concrete coming in all at one time that really destroys the roads. So I don't think it's as big an issue. I mean, it depends on what the town does for road use law in the future. If you set a lower threshold,
right.
and they had a project where they had to replace things then, and it was gonna generate the traffic load that we think would damage the town roads, then they'd have to apply for
They-
another road use permit for that.
They'd have to apply for a permit before they could do the work. Right?
And the leverage you would have there would be any financial guarantees that you're
Yes.
holding for the decommissioning
Yes,
concept.
yes,
That would be your leverage.
yes.
Right. So what we're saying is that this is essentially complete but not necessarily complete. It may have a few.
No, there are no haul routes. Prior to permitting, there has to be an actual step-by-step of how many trips are going to be done on what road
Gotcha.
over what period of time. This is a resolution to pass in a general form a road use agreement. Prior to permitting, there has to be a much more exhaustive plan produced.
Okay. And are you comfortable with this as is, Dan?
With the longer version?
With the longer version?
Guy's version sets out the process, procedures, and what has to be done.
Okay.
The short version that I had was be assuming that we already did the studies that Guy's report
Yeah.
or
Right.
version requires be done. We haven't got all those studies completed. So I would not be comfortable with saying you should adopt the 4-page short one because that needs the appendix of the actual plan
Right.
attached to it with the actual costs.
Right.
Guys, if you approve this, you say, okay, the town and the developer are agreeing to do these things like you would under a road use law in the town. So that's why I'm comfortable with the longer version.
And is there
Protecting the town.
anything in the shorter version, the one you did, that you felt should be incorporated that didn't get incorporated?
No, everything that's in mine, basically, this outlines all the studies you have to do.
Right.
Mine is saying, okay, we have the studies, we've determined this was the potential damage, this is what the costs are gonna be, and the developer agrees to do these things.
Right.
But, which are not in that,
Right.
it's not attached to that.
And Buddy,
There's Appendix A and Appendix B that have to be filled out prior to permitting.
Buddy, are you comfortable with this long form agreement from Guy Crow?
No, because I haven't heard the issues that I brought up at the last board meeting.
Which were,
The penalties, escrow, and making sure it's turnkey.
and those are in there, not in there?
They're in there.
Dan?
No, they're not.
There, it talks about the financial requirements
Yeah.
that the town would need to have based on the studies that are done in
Yeah.
the report.
Right.
It doesn't specifically list any penalties at this point, but it says that you,
And it talks
This is-
about bonding too, nothing about escrow and stuff.
It talks about a variety of vehicles that are possible to make the financial
Right.
guarantee. It does not limit it to one kind of financial guarantee.
right,
That is done further down in the process
right.
and is another,
But basically, this is an
Agreement.
agreement to agree.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
I guess what I'd like to ask then, I'd ask Buddy again, that this resolution that Ann just read has stated, are you comfortable with that resolution being approved with the idea that the road use agreement will be finalized later?
Well, at the board meeting, she said she wanted to replace county with Dan Walker.
That's not how I read it tonight at the meeting.
All right, well, I don't want the county in it. Why is the county involved in our road building and stuff? I didn't know nothing against Dan, but Dan shouldn't have. I'm your road commissioner. I'm your road superintendent. Have been for 7 years. If I need an engineer or somebody else to help me what to do with the roads, that's who I call in. Not the board or the town. And I don't know about the county, what's the county got to say about it?
Right.
I really do not believe we need to do this right away. I think we should wait and even run on the county shirt tail of doing their road
That's what
agreement
this
with them.
resolution says. we
No,
will
it doesn't.
do.
This says you are approving what you're already put out there. You just read that.
Says it's approved and adopted in its general form, which
In the
is,
general form.
which means pretty much everything that's there is
Which means
okay.
it's pretty broad, and
Yeah.
there's no price range in there. Is there a price range?
I'm getting to that question with Dan. The town has
With Dan.
endeavored to coordinate with the county to to the extent possible, to ensure that the roadways are built and restored in one coordinated process to ensure proper oversight, save costs, and minimize disruption to road usage. That's why it's done in conjunction with the county. To ensure proper oversight, save costs, and minimize disruption to road usage.
Well, I guess I have two comments. One is that the number 2 on the resolution just read, I would feel uncomfortable just signing away my rights to look at the final before it got its final form.
You have that. It's part of the permitting process.
I have the right to it. Well, it seems to me I'm signing away that right here. It says the town supervisor is authorized to sign and execute this agreement.
The general agreement. Within the general agreement, further down the line, there has to be a specific plan that's approved prior to permitting.
Well, that's not what it says. It says the town supervisor is authorized to sign and execute the same in the name of the town and behalf of the town once and after the final changes are made to the form of such agreement to implement the developer county town restoration plan. So it's saying that after all these changes have been made, then the supervisor is authorized to just sign them without coming back to the board. That's the way I read it anyways.
Where did these come from anyway?
Guy Crow.
Guy Crow wrote these resolutions up?
I think
Yes.
he wrote the 22-page one. Dan wrote the 4-page one.
No, I mean the
Guy
Oh, this-
one-page one.
Crow.
Yeah, then-
Where did these resolutions come from?
Guy Crow.
I don't think so.
And I guess the second thing I would want to say was, that I know that way back at the start, my concern was to make sure that whatever we approved and signed, that our highway superintendent would approve of it. And to me, the fact that he's really not ready to approve it yet means that I'm not ready to approve the resolution at this point for myself.
Does anybody else want to discuss?
I think the way I'm reading part 2 is that's how Mike interprets that. Shouldn't that come back, shouldn't a final agreement come back to the board?
As part of the permitting process, yes. There are many stages in the permitting process. We'll come back to the board.
That's not what number 2 states, though. I guess I'm interpreting it the way Mike interprets it after reading it.
Well, it doesn't say the supervisor approves the final changes. It says, once those final changes are made, the supervisor's authorized to sign and execute them.
So the language is ambivalent, I would say, probably. It's hard to know exactly what the intent is.
Well, I mean, it seems to me that the final changes would be made by the entire board.
Seems like they would, yeah. Yeah, and it certainly, when you say that now, I can see reading it that way too.
Can you just clarify that by saying, like, after the final changes as approved by the town board?
And that would
That
clarify
would
it.
clarify it?
right?
You want to make an additional amendment?
Yes.
Or-
Amendment to the motion?
I amend the motion in part 2, where in sentence 1, where it says, once and after the final changes are made, that it should read, once and after the final changes as approved by the town board are made. That will just clarify that, where it's ambiguous, I think.
Maybe Celeste could read it once she's got it written.
Well, just once and after the final changes are made as approved by the town board would be inserted in there.
Are made-
I don't have that
Are made and
resolution.
approved by the town board.
Are made and approved.
You wanted that after changes, didn't you? Isn't that what Michael said?
Yeah, if it makes sense in a better way, I think that clarifies it.
Maybe read from the start then, and
Okay.
the way you want to have it be.
The town supervisor, this is number 2, the town supervisor be and hereby is authorized to sign and execute the same by, for, and in the name on behalf of the town, once and after the final changes as approved by the town board are made to the form of such agreement to implement the developer county town restoration plan in language and a form as approved by the town attorney and the town highway superintendent.
That's what I thought you said. Is there any discussion of that addition to the motion?
If you're gonna do that, why don't we just do the road agreement then? I mean, you're doing it twice.
This is the motion before the board,
And it's up for discussion.
and we're in the discussion phase. We're discussing,
Your highway superintendent of the town says he does not like this, and I would like for you to not pass it. That's where I stand.
And I would say that I hear what you're saying.
so what is before us right now is the amendment to the motion. Michael's amendment to the motion. Is there any discussion?
Does he need a
I'm-
second for that, or how does that work?
Oh, yeah, let's do a second.
I'll second it.
So is there any other tweaking of the general motion that you want to do in this amendment?
What's the number?
Ah, what's the number? What would the number of the resolution be, Alice?
54.
Is there any other discussion of the amendment to the motion? Okay, we are voting on the amendment wording to the motion. That's what this vote is about. You have to approve the amendment prior to the whole resolution. So Alice, call the vote.
Councilperson Carpenter?
Aye.
Councilperson Handstein?
Aye.
Councilperson Miles?
Aye.
Supervisor Ryder?
Aye. Okay, now we're back to the motion on the floor, which is the resolution 54, the broad approval of approving a road use agreement. Is there any other discussion on the whole resolution? The whole motion?
Buddy, can you tell us again exactly what it is that you want to see added to this?
One thing, there's no dollar amount in the blanks right now.
As the road superintendent, could you put a number in there?
No, not tonight.
Can you put a number in there tomorrow?
Probably next week.
Can you suggest a number, Dan?
Not tonight, no.
And then the other questions that I had at the last board meeting 10 minutes ago about penalties, escrow account, not bonding, and turnkey policy.
And I'll repeat that this is the general approval of a more specific road use agreement at a later stage.
What number exactly is in question? 'Cause
This one right here.
There's various numbers.
Right on the resolution itself.
Okay, I was looking at.
And this has to do with the financial instrument that they're going to, a lot of it has to do with the financial instrument that they are going to secure and present to us for approval.
Which is what Buddy's talking about.
But this does not limit the kind of financial instrument it's going to be. So I don't know why we're boxing ourselves in.
Well, I'd like to have the guy crow about it myself.
Well, my understanding from Guy is you've discussed it.
Not that resolution.
I don't understand all Guy Crow's version of it, but, but one thing that we're approving here is this resolution, and the resolution has a empty dollar amount.
Yeah, right.
So we can't really approve it until that's filled in.
$500,000.
I don't even know what is a reasonable amount.
No, that's not reasonable. But
Which is why we need to know.
But it's a ceiling. I mean, you truly think that it's going to be more than
That's
$500,000
town expense, right?
for 1.5
So
miles
you're
of
giving
town?
more of the town away? I thought you've given enough away already.
1.5 miles of town road.
And I just did a mile and it cost $100,000.
I rest my case.
And that's nothing like what you're gonna experience with that mile and a half.
Probably wouldn't have the same amount of damage.
Correct.
It what?
I'm saying, Buddy's saying the road he just did probably wouldn't be wasn't as damaged as likely the road would be after the trucks are hauling through it. So where it cost him, you said $100,000 for 1 mile?
For 1 mile.
1 mile, that was with a road that was probably in better shape
Just-
than this
yes.
road's gonna be. And then, plus these roads haven't been probably taken care of in a few years in anticipation for this project.
That's not what he stated earlier at a meeting.
I'm just throwing the last part on, because I know Black Oak is pretty torn up in places.
Well, the county readily admits that they have delayed repairs.
And that's.
But that's not what I heard Buddy say at an earlier meeting, that he's done. So you wanna,
I don't know what you're talking about now.
you stated at an earlier meeting that the town roads were not in terrible disrepair.
They're not now. They will be, because they can't take the damage.
Well, that's what this is about. We all agree with that.
Well, I don't agree with this at all, without talking to Guy and stuff, because I think it's been pulled out of the sky.
I'm probably more comfortable with Guy's version, but I don't know what that number should be on a resolution.
This is just for a mile and a half of
That-
Enfield Road?
Well,
Maybe, maybe
Buddy
not.
stated earlier at the June meeting that there was 1.5 miles of road, town roads involved in the second version, which is before us now.
Is that mostly Harvey Hill?
Half of
I-
it.
That's right.
Table.
I make an amendment to fill in this dollar amount at $500,000. The town's cost not to exceed $500,000. Can I get a second to that?
Second.
So, we've been given the information that a mile of town road very recently cost $100,000 to repair and bring up to a standard. We are talking about 1.5 miles of town road that will probably be more damaged during construction than the road that the superintendent chose to remediate in the past couple of weeks. Extrapolating that, it would seem to me that $500,000 is a comfortable maximum figure that will protect the town. This is not that it has to cost $500,000. That is decided at the end of construction. This is the maximum.
The road you just did, the 1 mile, was it just surface damage or was there like underlying structural damage to the road?
Just surface.
Just surface? So it'd be more likely there'd be structural damage, underlying structural damage to the road with that amount of heavy traffic and
Yeah.
equipment going through. What factor?
And that's not doing 100% the correct way either. We basically just did a cheap patch job.
Was it blacktop or was it stone and oil?
It's cold mixed blacktop,
Cold mix?
but it's made, basically the base of the road wasn't never redid or nothing, so it's not very good base. None of our roads have good base in them. We couldn't afford to do a 1/4 mile road if we did them the right way. If you repaired the base and drainage and
What's underneath the roads now? Is there like shale or something underneath?
clay,
Just clay?
mostly clay, a lot of it, everywhere.
So that wouldn't be able to hold up under that amount of traffic. Would 500,000 seem reasonable for that?
I'm not gonna argue the point no more, Mike. I mean, I've said what I thought and feel.
If it's not, then we can always.
You asked Dan, he couldn't have a number, I don't have a number, but Ann does, so
When,
more power.
when we approve a final version of the road use agreement, we could always change the update the resolution to change that number.
I don't think it's embedded in stone.
I mean, we're not.
In Guy's version, in section 14, he's got, for the general classes of roads, he's got estimated
Yeah, I
costs.
saw that.
Which are-
Except we don't know what class of road this is.
No, but based on, I'd say most of the town roads are probably gonna be class 3, 4, or 5. You don't have any class 1 or 2 roads.
We don't, I think everybody agrees on
And-
that.
And basically, these numbers are to bring it back to what it is.
Is.
As opposed to a higher class of road.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
So, a $500,000 guarantee for 1.5 miles of road is, if the developer's willing to sign off on that, that's pretty good protection for the town. I mean, that's.
Based on the numbers that are in the road use agreement.
Based on these, just based on current construction costs. Because it probably would cost you $400,000 to rebuild 1 mile of road if you did it, as Buddy says, the full
Right.
rebuild, full depth reconstruction.
But I don't believe that the town can demand that the developer make it a blacktop road if it
No,
hasn't,
no,
historically hasn't been that.
I mean, you can ask them to, but it's probably not something they would agree to.
Or that an outside
I mean,
body would think was reasonable.
basically, again, it depends on what the development's going to do. If a developer is building a development, not say the wind farm, but an industrial site that was gonna have continuous traffic on it, and it needed a class 1 road to survive that, it would be reasonable for the
During
town.
operation.
During operation, it would be reasonable for the town to ask for that. The purpose of this agreement is to not cost the town a lot of money to bring the road back to where it should be. It's not necessarily, and if they improve it to a better condition than it is, that's good for the town. But the expectation is that they need to make the road strong enough to handle their traffic and give the town back a road that's at least as good as it was before they started.
Right. And in the 18-page agreement, there are dollar figures assigned to the class of road.
Yes.
Yeah, those are fairly, I think, reasonable numbers for resurfacing.
And which page is that on?
That's on page,
14.
it's section 14,
Is that
paragraph 14.
That's-
Yeah, if you find
That's just
section 14
resurfacing,
at the
not
top.
rebuilding.
It would be, there would probably be some repair of weak spots in there for that cost.
So a class 3 is, the classification of roads is, number
Class-
1 is like a state, class 1 is a state highway or a county highway?
And the classes that the guy has here is a structure class. That's basically, class 1 would be a state or county highway
A county highway
type of
blacktop.
construction, which is.
Okay, so the town roads are down in structural class 3, 4, or 5.
Right.
Later on in the road use agreement, he attaches numbers to the classes of roads. And what, so,
80,000
Class
a
3.
mile for-
class 3 is probably as high as the town road could go, and
Right.
that's 140,000 a mile. We have 1.5 miles of town road.
Right.
So that seems to me comes well under
Yeah,
500,000.
I think a $500 figure. And again, the expectation of restoring a class 4 or 5 road would be not paving it, but it would be basically rebuilding it with, regrading it with gravel, and then probably double surface grading it, because that's basically what that condition is.
But that's,
That's why it's less money. in
That's
business
why
to
it's
be-
less money.
Right. But
again, well under $500,000 for 1.5 miles of town road.
yeah,
Given that we can change it as more information becomes available, I second Ann's amendment to that.
And Buddy's
Oh,
issue with penalties, escrow, binding, and
Okay.
turnkey, that can be addressed in the
I wasn't sure if
final
it was seconded
changes
or
too,
not.
right?
Yes? Well, it does talk in here about the vehicle. It gives a choice of vehicles to insure.
This road use agreement is basically saying, we've still got to do a lot of work to determine what we need to
Yes,
do to these roads.
Yes.
It doesn't even identify what roads we're using
Right.
specifically.
right. Right.
And that's been a moving target because it's different
Yes.
now than it was
Yes.
earlier.
Yes.
And we, I would prefer to see a road use agreement not signed until we actually do that work and use the short form and with the appendix of the actual description, the A and B that's in here, actual description, and then you enter that agreement and say, okay, this is the condition the road is today.
Right.
This is what you're gonna do to it, this is what you have to do prior to your heavy load on it to maintain the trafficability, and then what your expectations are that you're gonna have to do after you're done with the project. That would be my preference. And that's what my version is basically saying you've already done that work and you've identified all those numbers and you have those in the appendix and you're signing off on that. That's the best protection for the town. Guy's version is, the longer version is protecting the town because it's saying you have to do all these things. And the town says that as part of this process, our expectation is we're gonna give you a permit to use the road, but you have to follow all these steps to do it and get through it. And to ensure that you follow all these steps, if you wanna ask them for a $500,000 bond, I think that gives the town pretty good protection at this point. It may not even be the amount that they need to spend on the town roads. But
But there's not much information that suggests it would be more than that.
no, I don't think it'd be more than that for the town roads.
Okay, we are going to vote on the second amendment to the resolution, which is inserting $500,000 as the cost not to exceed. Any other discussion on that dollar figure? Call the vote.
Councilperson Carpenter?
Aye.
Councilperson Handstein?
Aye.
Councilperson Miles?
Aye.
Supervisor Ryder?
Aye. So now we're back to the original motion, which is to approve the road use agreement and the general roadway restorative plan in coordination with Tompkins County. And again, as Dan has stated, the nitty-gritty work has yet to be done. This is the general concept that we're voting on tonight.
I guess I would make one more comment. If Buddy's not really sure about it, and if Dan, from what I just heard, is not really sure about it, why are we doing it? I don't understand what gains us to make this resolution to approve this. I don't understand what benefit it is. We can all agree and say, we like the road use agreement that Guy has done. We like Dan's input in watching it. We're looking for Buddy's input in terms of some things, and we're gonna talk about the final thing when it's all ready, which is great. I think we're all on the same page there, but why would we do this? I just don't
Because
understand.
this is the first step to do the second step.
Well, I think it's a step that's probably, in my mind, irrelevant. And I'm not saying that it is irrelevant, I'm just saying in my mind, it is. So,
Other-
Just one comment about this long agreement basically would be, if this was entered into and the developer agreed to it and the town agreed to it, it basically covers one part of the findings for the final environmental impact statement.
right.
One, that being the impact on town roads.
Right.
And
Which is one of the
this is
sections.
one of the sections, one of the areas. So what this does is this basically commits the developer to following through
Right.
to do this before they get the actual construction permit for the
Well,
development.
but they're committed to following through to have it in place
Right.
anyway.
I mean-
So,
It's good to have this format, I mean,
right, I agree.
so that they're saying, okay, we know this is what we're gonna do, and this follows along with the process that's required by the county.
Right.
So this puts you on the same level as the county as far as the development, the review process.
So let me restate what you said, so I see if I heard it clearly. I think what you're saying is that this will help smooth and speed the process as we go along, so that the developer can understand better that this is probably our go-to road use agreement, and they can do their finalization of their part of it with this in mind, that it will be probably our road use. Okay.
So so it provides clarity
Right.
in what the board.
Right. And if you put that $500,000 bond out there, they have an idea what their maximum exposure is gonna be for the town portion of it. It's gonna be higher for the county portion
Right.
of it, but that's a different, it's
But
not the
that's
town's
not our
portion. It's not
business.
your business.
Well-
And without it, we're still arguing whether we should use your version or your guys' version, you know.
No, I basically,
But-
my comment about 2 months ago was that Guy's version is basically a road use law,
Yes,
and you don't have a road use law. And
Right.
I understand where he's coming from in there, it puts language in there that indemnifies the town and protects the town.
So basically says,
Yeah.
we like Guy's version, we're gonna go down this road using Guy's version, it's not.
well, it's the more
there's
prudent.
There's more detail to be filled in
Absolutely.
at a final stage.
Absolutely.
It's clear that it's not the final form, the final agreement, that it.
Well,
will be
you
a final
know,
version
I would think
forthcoming.
that 2015 has to be changed. Yeah, just a thought.
Well, thanks for that update, Dan. I don't feel like it's irrelevant now, which is good.
No, I mean, it's, what this does is if the developer needs, for their, in their process, they have a lot of other things going on besides just the town's
Yes.
permit.
Makes sense.
This gives them a document saying, okay, the town in principle is agreeing that we're gonna impact the road and they're gonna let us do it as long as we take care of it.
So I think it's a really good idea for us to do this. I would just go back to what Buddy said, and I think we actually need more detailed information in this before we actually even go ahead and approve it. And my biggest concern is, my awareness is that some of the bonding and money guarantee sureties protocols that we've been looking at and investigating seem to be problematic to me and to our lawyer as well. And so I guess I would feel much more comfortable if I had a little bit better sense of how we were going to go about dealing with that part of it, particularly the parts that Buddy just brought up before. So I guess I would feel comfortable with the idea of following through with getting this approved, but I wouldn't be ready to approve it yet until we had those final things figured out.
Would that be part of a final document?
Yes, that's, yes.
Well, it would be true, it would just be a matter of the wording and how you interpret the words. What we just said, or what Dan just said, is that we want to assure Black Oak, or at least give Black Oak some direction in terms of what it is that we are likely to be approving when it comes down to the end. And if we don't really even have a sense of what the financial sureties are, that's a big part of the whole thing. And to me, that would be something that would be good for them to know. I mean, we could just say, well, here's half an apple. You can see what the apple tastes like from this half an apple, and we'll give you the other half of the apple sometime in the future, which might be good. And yet at the same time, I'm not sure as a town board that that's really the best policy for us to do in the end. I mean, I can say to Black Oak myself, I am going to agree in general with the one that Guy wrote, with the caveat that Dan's and Buddy's comments on it and changes on it would be important to me to have there. And I think we're far enough along in the process at this point that Black Oak could say that, could see that and say, well, okay, this is where we're going. I think we'll act as if this is going to be the happen. I don't see any of us coming in and saying, oh, this is all junk, let's throw it out and start again. That's not likely to happen now. So to me, I would rather just feel more comfortable that I really had the bones of the agreement settled in a good place, and then say, okay, we're settled. And to be honest, personally, I just decided way long time ago that if Buddy wasn't happy with it, I wasn't going to agree to it. So that's just me. But,
I don't know, the road use agreement that I'm reading does talk about bonding and.
A
and those
variety
other
of
credits, so,
vehicles, a
um,
variety of
and-
vehicles.
And the developer has to know that when they read the resolution, this is not the final
Right.
version.
right. Right.
And they will present a form. We approve it or disapprove the actual form.
Right.
Which is exactly what I just said. I mean, we have.
Well, that's not what I understood.
Well, let me explain that. But-
No, we're going on.
Okay.
We're going on.
And this version says to be determined by the town, so that's one of those things that have to be filled in.
Right, so we haven't determined it. So what are we telling Black Oak? Well, we don't really know yet. We don't really know what we're gonna do yet, sorry.
Well, they know that it's gonna be some form of.
They do,
bond or credit or
and
escrow.
here it is. We'll give it to Marguerite and say, here it is, and I'm sure she has a copy of it already. I don't wanna go
Half an apple
any.
is better than no apple, Mike, it really is.
Yes. If you're hungry, it definitely is, I agree.
Does anyone else have any
I'll shut up. One more.
discussion? On resolution 2016-54, which is the motion before us, that was duly seconded. We've had 2 amendments to that motion. Any other discussion? Call the vote.
Councilperson Carpenter?
No.
Councilperson Handstein?
Aye.
Councilperson Miles?
I,
Supervisor Ryder?
Aye. And the last item on the agenda is the,
I do want to add one more item to the agenda when we're done.
oh, I see.
cut up in the old business.
No, I'm sorry.
We are
It's hard to sit here with all the,
Exactly.
with the rude comments. Every week.
What rude comments are those? I didn't hear them. We don't have to agree, though, we have to be civil.
That's right. We have to be civil. I move that Resolution 2016-55, entitled Town of Enfield Resolution Establishing Amount and Terms of Decommissioning Bonds and Other Security for Future Performance of Decommissioning and Removal Obligations of Developer. Where's the town's, so does everybody have that before them? It's one
have it.
page. And it is a blank at the top, 2016 dash blank. I don't have a second copy.
I think we have one we can do too.
Whereas the town's wind law requires a decommissioning bond or equivalent security as approved by the town board to be determined in amount for each tower in relation to each permit, but not less than $125,000 per tower as delineated in Article 1, Section 1, 10, and Article 6, Section 1, D through 8, F. And whereas a permit application and review are in progress, and while no permits have issued to erect towers, it is necessary to attend to many details, including decommissioning costs and securitization of the developer's obligation to decommission and deconstruct towers and facilities upon obsolescence, loss, closure, and other like circumstances. And whereas the general form of a decommissioning bond, written as a surety bond guaranteeing developers' performance, has been generally, but not specifically reviewed and approved by the town attorney pursuant to Articles 1, Section 1, 10, and 4, Section 1, D, E, and F of the local law. And whereas engineering estimates duly reviewed by the town established a cost per tower for decommissioning and deconstruction, and such amount of $875,000 be and hereby is established as the gross initial decommissioning amount that developer may duly guarantee or securitize in a manner as approved by the town, with such amount as to be applied severally in proportional allotments to each tower. And whereas the developer has proposed a plan whereby it may, in the future, displace bonds with cash deposits and pledged accounts, and, subject to approval of the same at such future time as substituted security is proposed, and the final of the terms and the amounts thereof by the town board per Article 6, Section 1, it is agreed in principle that the developer may replace the initial bonds with a cash escrow or similar pledge accounts in the amount of $850,000. Oops,
875?
no, it's 125 times 7.
875.
So I don't know whether I can multiply or not. Well, we can be consistent, I don't. 125,000,
Or-
whichever is greater, to securitize the decommissioning obligations of developer, and whereas upon due consideration and deliberation thereupon by the town board of the town of Enfield, be it resolved as follows. The amount of, so what is 125,000?
Times 7, 875, right?
Is it 875?
No, it's higher, that's 975. Because 8 times 25 would be 200, right?
15 and
Enough
7.
calculators come.
15 and
Nine-
7.
nine-
875.
875.
875?
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, 8.
Be and hereby is set and approved as the gross project decommissioning cost, and a proportionate amount must be securitized by security bond for each tower permit issued. Such amount is subject to change over the life of the tower and facilities, as periodic reviews of the decommissioning costs may thereafter occur under the local law. Subject to the approval of the town board as to the terms and amounts of such escrow or other pledge, the developer may substitute cash or cash-based accounts in lieu of and in replacement of surety bonds upon such schedule and at such times as developer may elect. For this purpose, the sum of $850,000 or $125,000 per tower, whichever is greater, be and is hereby set as the initial cash or depository pledge amount to securitize the future decommissioning costs and removal obligations of the developer. Such amount is subject to change over the life of the tower and facilities, as periodic reviews of the decommissioning costs may thereafter occur under the local law. Could I get a second?
Second.
We need to change that that 850 to 875 under number 2, all right?
Or $125,000 per tower, whichever is greater.
Okay.
So I don't see the need to change it
Okay.
in either place. Because I think it's,
Would be 875, which is the
I
greater amount.
believe it would be 875. Two or three of us did the multiplication. Maybe somebody else can come up with a different number in the future. Did you say, did I get a second?
Second.
You did.
Mike second.
Mike seconded. Again, this is not approving a decommissioning plan. This is approving financial security of a decommissioning plan.
It is, however, identifying the decommissioning plan and referencing it.
Right, and that has to be done during the permitting process.
Well, it says there already is one. It says the developer has proposed a plan.
Which, whereas.
So are you saying we have no decommissioning plan? Is that what it is?
We have a draft that has been submitted to us.
This one here,
Yes.
which is not dated.
The date is about 3 years ago. 16.
So what are we?
13.
I don't understand what we're basing, we don't.
This isn't based on the wind law. This is based on the wind law.
I don't understand what we're basing this resolution on. We have no plan, which we have, we haven't
We're basing it on the local law #1 of 2009.
But why are we doing this? What's the point of doing this?
It is a part of the permitting process to.
No, this isn't part of the
to-
permitting process. This resolution isn't.
To ensure the town.
This resolution isn't part of the permitting process. The permitting process is approving a decommissioning plan. This is not approving a decommissioning plan. There isn't even a decommissioning plan in existence. How can, I don't understand what we're doing. It makes no sense to me.
It looks like it just approves a dollar amount.
Yes, yes, to protect the town.
Michael,
During
2 meetings ago was going to bring a report back on those
I don't
dollar
have
amounts.
it.
We haven't even heard the report yet that we decided we were going to listen to before we decided what the dollar amount was going to be.
And he doesn't have it tonight.
I don't have it.
Well, that was your concern that that the board should have some mechanism so they didn't have to review
One
the
of my concerns. yeah.
decommissioning.
Yeah.
All right, yes.
I have a
one of
concern
your
about
concern-
what we're going to do about the roads if there have to be repairs. I have a concern about
It
what we're going to do about the
is
roads
in-
at the end. It's in what? It's in the decommission? It's not in this
Yes.
decommissioning plan?
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't. You show me where.
I will. You want
Here.
me to highlight it?
Yeah.
course, now this does say that the amount's subject to change.
So what's the point?
Or how
We-
can you even agree on something that you don't know what it says?
We have no plan, we have
I have no report.
no, he has no report, we have no inclusion of any of these issues, we don't know what the dollar amount is, and yet we're approving something that we just don't have any clue what we're even talking about. It makes no sense to me. It just makes me feel like I'm being stupid as a board member.
I don't know, I mean, I really think that this resolution quite clearly outlines the town wind law requires a decommissioning bond or equivalent security.
In the plan
The town's wind law
requires,
requires a decommissioning bond.
in the decommissioning plan, as part of the decommissioning plan, it requires a bond, or some other surety of financial
Right,
thing.
right.
The bond itself is very questionable.
It does not say it has to be a bond.
It doesn't say it has to be, and yet in many places it refers to the bond as if that's what we're going to do. It is agreed in principle that the developer may
principle.
replace the initial bonds with a cash escrow or similar thing in the amount of, and that says may replace, it doesn't say that they have to replace. It's basically leaving it pretty open-ended with how they want to do it. To me, again, if I was Black Oak Wind Farm, I would be saying, well, they're kind of telling me what I'm supposed to do, but not really, because they're not telling me I have to do a bond, or a surety, or a letter of credit, or what I have to do there. What's the point? We don't know the amount of money, we haven't decided on that, we don't know what form of security that we're gonna give them, and we don't have a plan in place, and we don't have things in the preliminary plan that 6 or 7 different things that we wanna have. This just seems foolish to do to me. Did you find it?
Mm-hmm. It's the last paragraph. It's not the second to the last paragraph.
It doesn't say anything about roads, Ann. Oh, the last paragraph.
The last paragraph,
The last
right
paragraph,
above
gotcha.
references.
Yes. All county, town, and state roads impacted by the project decommissioning activity, if any, will be restored to completion. Very good, thank you. I did miss. So all we need to do
This
is,
was-
all we need to do then is add to this the issues about repair of roads if they have to come in during the life of the project and repair a tower. or
Well,
replace a tower.
I think that's in the law.
Which one?
Local law number 1 of 2009.
Maybe you could find that one for me too.
I've got the index. Page 8 of the local law number 1 of 2009. It's number 10.
The applicant shall submit a written decommissioning plan that shall include at a minimum the anticipated life, the estimated decommissioning cost in current dollars, how said estimate of decommissioning cost was determined, the method of ensuring that funds will be available for decommissioning and restoration costs, the method by which the decommissioning and restoration cost funds will be kept current relative to increases and decreases in total decommissioning and restoration costs, the form of any type of security, bond, or other undertaking that will be posted to assure that the current decommissioning and restoration costs are available for decommissioning and restoration, and the manner in which the WTG will be decommissioned and the site restored. So it doesn't specifically,
That's the law.
right, but it doesn't list anything about what to do about the road damages to turbines that are not decommissioned but replaced. If they replace a turbine, presumably there'll be road damage at that time,
Well, there's disagreement about that.
that there would be road damage, or?
Yes. But,
Well, it actually, it specifically only
relates to
The big one?
remediation of a site, and the site
Decommissioning plan.
is specifically only the parcel of property
Oh,
that a
that one.
turbine's on. So it doesn't deal with roads.
So the law in the decommissioning plan, your contention is that the law, local law number 1, 2009, in the decommissioning plan does not specifically say anything about road remediation.
In the part in the decommissioning plan, it doesn't say anything about road remediation.
So therefore,
Or-
it isn't in here,
It isn't in where?
in the law.
I'm saying it doesn't say anything about road remediation in the event of the replacement of turbines during the course of the life of the wind farm project, basically. Which, we have a
Oh,
road use agreement for the
that's what you're
start.
saying now.
And we have the decommissioning plan for the end, but we have nothing that says they have to fix it in the middle, so.
But it also doesn't deal with road remediation during decommission in the law.
So you're saying because it specifically does not say in the law anything about road remediation in the decommissioning plan, and I assume you're also saying because in the law it says nothing during road remediation during the life of the project, therefore this doesn't have any,
No, I'm not saying that at all.
you're not saying
No,
that? Well, let's start again then.
Okay. I'm saying that the resolution is missing so much information in so many different areas that it seems almost wrong to approve it, rather than right to approve it, rather than right to approve it with some things missing. To me, there's so many things wrong about it and so many things missing from it that I would feel uncomfortable passing it as it is, because we don't have a decommissioning plan in place. We have serious questions about
This is about a
bonding.
bond. This
We
is
have-
about a bond. It's not about a plan.
We have serious questions about bonds from our town attorney. And what it says in this resolution is the town attorney in general agrees with it. I'm not finding that to be true from the letters that I've read that he's written. I don't find that he in general agrees with it at all. So, to me, it's wrong to approve this.
Because you don't think the town attorney who wrote this is agreeing with himself.
Here's a letter from Guy Crowe. For example, a municipality wants a bond underwriter to step in and guarantee performance. Here, decommissioning and deconstruction or road repairs when the actual developer, owner, or contractor is not performing or has not performed and is in default, or is incapable of performing or has ceased to exist, etc. So a non-performing, recalcitrant developer in default is the reason for making a bond claim. Yet many surety bonds have a backdoor indemnity agreement whereby the developer indemnifies and defends the bond company, such that the town, to foreclose on the bond, just ends up fighting against the very developer the bond was supposed to give it a guarantee against in the first place. This is from Guy.
So does he give you the mechanism he likes? Or did he give us the mechanism he likes?
In general, at the end of this letter, he says, so, surety bonds are fine, they just have features that can become problematic at the time of enforcement. So it's great to have the bond, but when it comes to time to get your money, it may be, well, maybe you'll get your money, maybe you won't. So,
I don't think that answered my question.
what was the question again? I'm sorry.
What did he recommend to the board?
I don't think he recommended to the board. I don't think we asked him for a recommendation. A number of the places, he just said, this is what the board asked me, so I'm stopping here and not getting anything more about it. Because the board didn't ask me to do this, it just said to give me this is in a letter to Marguerite Wells, actually, that he wrote, but you were CC'd on it.
Yeah.
There's another aspect of it as well. The surety, the bondholder's liability under this bond shall not extend in any manner, nor will the surety be responsible to pay any sums due related to hazardous waste cleanup, wetlands mitigation, remediation or removal of environmental contamination, or responsibility for any of these pollution risks whatsoever, or for tort liability. Which means if somebody gets hurt in taking down the towers, I think that's tort liability. But it certainly means that if they tipped over one of the nacelles and it sprung a leak, and that 400 gallons of oil, or however much oil it is, were to spread out on the land afterwards, then the surety bond wouldn't cover the cleanup of that oil in the land itself. Which means that then falls to whoever it is, and basically it's the town or the homeowner that would have to clean it up, unless they can somehow get the owner of the project to do it themselves, in which case the owner of the project has to be willing to, and they have to be still in existence. If they weren't in existence anymore, it's pretty much comes down to the town or the owner of the property having to clean up that environmental stuff. So obviously bonding has some significant issues we need to think about and try and find a solution for. Which again, since we're relying so heavily on the idea of the bonds in this resolution, again, I say I'm not really comfortable approving this resolution, because it just doesn't have the correct information that we want to be sending out to the public, and we want to be sending out to Black Oak either.
So even though it says written as a security bond guaranteeing for developers percent has been generally but not specifically reviewed and approved. I mean, that's pretty,
So
not
why,
very,
again, why are we doing it? Are we doing it for the reason that Dan just said? That we're trying to let Black Oak know kind of where we're going with this whole thing? This isn't saying that. This is saying, well, the surety bond's probably fine. I don't necessarily think the surety bond is fine. So why would we approve this
Is
and
that
tell
what
Black
it
Oak something
says?
that we don't think is true?
That, apparently that's what Guy said, that he said there could be problems with the bond. But I'm no expert on bonds.
Bond expert either.
Well, that's
What
why.
what
I
did you
listened to
just
Guy.
read from with regard to the cleanup, that they wouldn't be liable for cleanup? Where did that come from?
This is a portion of the bond, of a typical bond agreement. It's not our bond agreement, it's
Oh.
a typical bond agreement that bonding agencies usually put into their bonds.
I
Okay.
think it's the one Black Oak gave you as a draft.
It may have come in from the one, yeah.
Also, as a landowner, if you're leaving the landowner holding the bag on some sort of like, spill or something, that's adding, insult to injury in a huge way, as far as I'm concerned. Me being a landowner. I wouldn't stand for that for a second.
Mike, some of the exclusions that those indemnity bonds, or payment bonds
Right.
are in there is usually covered because there's another insurance policy that the owner or the
It
contractor.
covers all the backdoor stuff, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you've got the bond, which covers the costs of remediation or decommissioning.
Right.
But they also have to maintain liability insurance, and a lot of those accident or type of things, a spill would be covered under that liability insurance.
And I definitely can.
And that's why
Yeah.
the budget, they wouldn't want to be covering that if it's,
I definitely can see that as valid, and I definitely can see it as something we want to follow through in the process. I just don't feel like this resolution talks about that at all. I feel like it's so incomplete in terms of what we want to actually approve, that I don't feel comfortable
well, so
approving
will
it.
you write up a draft?
In order to get to what?
What you want?
Well, what I'd like to do is actually get the decommissioning plan with all the information that we need on it, and have it be complete and have us look at it.
So
and
you want the
decide.
decommissioning plan first before we,
Don't they have to do that? Don't they?
before permitting, they have to do it.
So when would you think we would want the decommissioning plan?
Prior to permitting.
Which is after we've issued the finding statement,
Yeah,
and the finding statement has a positive
yeah,
approval rather than a negative.
yeah.
Right. Which could be 6 months away, whatever it would be, whatever. It seems like that would give them plenty of time to do a decommissioning plan. I guess maybe what you're saying is that you'd like to save them the work. and not having nothing to do
No.
with it. So
No.
what's the benefit then?
The benefit is that they understand the money involved.
But we don't even know the money involved yet. We asked Michael to look into the dollar amounts, and he hasn't had a chance to do that yet.
In the law, you can only ask for $125,000 a tower.
No, I don't think so.
The application itself is supposed to have the decommissioning plan, not wait until
We
the
have the option to change that.
During the course of the project.
It says,
That's in-
it says the operator or applicant shall continuously maintain a fund, bond, letter of credit, or other form of security or undertaking that is acceptable to the town, number one. Two, in an amount reasonably and periodically determined by the town, which means it can go up as time goes along.
Right.
Three, in favor of and payable to the town upon demand. Four, for the removal and decommissioning of any wind energy facilities for the site restoration. And five, in the amount of $125,000 or such greater amount as reasonably be determined by the town for each wind energy facility subject to a permit. So $125,000 is the minimum amount
That's right.
that we're allowed to use, and we can decide that any larger amount is appropriate as long as we've done the homework and say, well, this seems more appropriate.
So really all we are doing is just setting that number.
Yes.
That's all it's doing.
Yes,
We're not
and that they
we're not
have
approving
to
a plan.
produce, we're not
Just-
approving a
we're just
plan,
We're just setting a number.
and we're not,
Based on my non-existing.
Well, that's not what
report.
Dan said. What Dan said is that we're sending a message to Black Oak and telling them what they can count on. And we're telling them they can count on things like surety bonds and all these other things that we've talked about up here.
But Mike, it's more, the permit.
you have to speak to the board, and this is not public comment period. The board
Their
is
escrow's already
discussing this.
over $40,000 in the minus as it is today. That's what their escrow is right now, so.
Because we haven't paid them.
No, they haven't paid us, that we got out of our pockets right now. The town. That they're supposed to keep up to a certain amount, and that hasn't even been done.
The secretary's working on it.
Not acceptable.
Thank you.
And bond is just like insurance, that money's gonna have to come out of the town's pocket before you collect anything from a bond and stuff. And this town ain't even have that much money if something like that happens. As of right now.
Some of the challenges in coming up with an actual number is that they estimate decommissioning costs, but I don't think it goes into, in the decommissioning plan, I don't think it goes into the level of detail that would be needed to determine
Well,
what-
here.
what those costs are.
Take this and see if that'll help you out. Yes, I know it was done in 2011, but why can't you follow that method?
I think you already got that once.
I already have this.
Yeah.
You can't follow that method?
I have to read it again, but one thing that I don't know is the details of the turbine. They specify in very general terms that a turbine is 230 tons in total weight. Well, I'll read it. They go through some numbers. It says the estimate was based on a total weight of one turbine, which is 230 tons, consisting primarily of steel. However, because it did not separate the scrap value of all the constituent materials, this is a very conservative estimate considering approximately 31 tons of the total weight is copper. So I can determine that the very specific number is 31 tons of copper, but I really don't know how much steel is in it because the 230 tons is the total weight of the turbine, and I'm assuming that would include the blades and materials and other things that are
And the
within the
cell and the
turbine.
tower.
I don't know whether they include in the base, I don't know what that number includes. I don't know how much, I can't estimate how much steel scrap value is, because I don't know how much steel is actually in these things. I can't determine it from this number, from the numbers in this plan.
In the draft,
in this draft. I mean, I
And then the other study analysis that was done is not on a similar turbine. Is that,
is that rhetorical, or is that you're
Uh,
saying that?
do you agree or disagree?
I'd have to read this again.
This is the other one that she gave us.
Yeah, I think I.
You got that too?
I think I have both of these.
Yeah.
I think I would feel comfortable trying to understand the total scope of the decommissioning, what that would take, because that not only includes just materials, but it could include any hazardous materials, oils, and stuff that might be part of this. Question of what you do with blades, what do you do with
So that,
I-
that analysis doesn't,
It probably does go into some level of detail. I have to read it again. I don't know. Just saying that I don't have the details on this particular model of turbine. I'm only reading what's in this decommissioning plan, what they set forth as the, because each turbine would have different proportions of materials.
and so you have no idea whether you can ever find what you want.
Correct. I could talk with Marguerite at Black Oak and see if they have more specific numbers on material breakdown.
Mhm.
That would help. It's not, in this particular draft document, it's not specific enough.
Wouldn't the blades be the only major component that wasn't steel or copper?
The nacelle, I don't think is made out of steel. I think it's made from.
What's that?
I think the nacelle isn't made from steel, the last I read about.
The what?
The nacelle, it's the
The
big
actual enclosure?
enclosure at the top
Mm.
that encloses all the working parts and everything. I think that's made from plastic or something, fiberglass or something like that.
Seems like it wouldn't be a very significant part of that 230 tons, but
I can imagine the blades would be a huge part of that.
Google
With that,
Google the weight of a turbine blade and get an idea. But
it'd be pretty rough, but I'd have to get some specific numbers.
I mean, you're just looking for the rough value of the salvage steel, right?
Well, yes, but when you decommission something, you have to do, basically, I think our plan has it going back to removing everything, including the foundation below grade. So
Well,
I think
so many inches below
3
grade.
feet, I think 3 feet below grade. So that has to be factored into that. So, and then you have to, then what do you do with all the stuff that's left after you take it all down? I mean, the foundation could probably be used as clean fill, I would assume, if it was broken up. But what do you do with the blades? I don't know what you do with the blades and the other composite materials.
Well, my understanding is there's quite some market for parts.
Maybe. I'm not sure what you do with the used wind turbine. Well, I'll read this again.
Well, he analyzes it. Now, I can understand that the numbers are different from 2011, but it doesn't seem to me the process of the analysis would be that much different. Of course, everybody could have a different way to get the chocolate cake on the table, but
Yeah, I'll review their methodology for determining that and make sure that the stuff that we're talking about encompasses that. I'm just worried about hidden costs, that all of a sudden you're decommissioning a turbine, like, and you have 3 blades sitting there, and like, what do you do with them? What do you do with this part? What do you do with that part? You can cut up the frame, and there might be some use for the tower in terms of raw steel value, the windings, which would be copper, which would have significant value, I would take, but I don't know about the other parts.
I think at the very least, for a decommissioning plant, you're talking about removing the turbine from the site. So the approach I would take on something like this is, okay, you're gonna have 100 hours of a 200-ton crane or 300-ton crane.
That's in that
You're gonna have,
analysis.
hauling off the site. You don't care what happens to this stuff once they get it off the site. It's gonna go someplace, either to a landfill or to a recycling center. But the real cost of decommissioning is what does it take to take this thing down and haul it away? And the way I usually figure that is, how much does it take to put it up? If you got, you've got 50 hours of crane, you've got 500 hours of labor, I'm just throwing numbers out, and I'm sure that's accurate. And whenever I do an estimate for a construction project or a deconstruction project, they say, okay, we're gonna have
How much crane time is involved?
50 tons of concrete that's gotta be chipped out. That's gonna take, it's time more than materials, because you're not buying any materials, you're spending time and you're hauling it away. So that's the approach I would take.
But
for
Dan,
demo.
isn't it true that if Black Oak were not around at the time of decommissioning, and therefore the town was responsible for the decommissioning process,
No,
wouldn't
you'd have to
they?
look at disposal costs.
Right, then they have to think about that too.
I guess the question is, you can have it hauled away, but the hauler has to take it to somewhere that's
Right.
acceptable
And-
to dispose of whatever they're hauling.
Right.
And the question is, if you're dealing with special materials, what do you, is there gonna be a place to take those special
Right, the
materials?
disposal cost of that, right?
Yeah. Like I said, in the case of steel, that's probably the simplest part of the
Right,
solution,
because
steel,
If,
Um,
yeah, and, well, it's assuming that
depending what kind of steel.
it's lost all its value. If it's still, in 5 years, if it's still an operable turbine, somebody may want it, and then they relocate it.
And they relocate.
That cost, could be, yeah.
Yep.
I'm sure the tower has some value in and of itself.
Yep.
So basically, you're not comfortable with the $125,000 figure per turbine?
I'm not comfortable with it, I don't know, yeah.
Mhm.
And like I said, sorry I haven't started it, that's, my fault. In order to actually do start it, I do need to have some specific numbers, like on material makeup and what kind of materials they are, what kind of hazardous materials there may be, that's, probably in an ASAL. I don't think we have that level of detail available to us.
I think it'd be
Like I
pretty
said,
hard
that's Black
to
Oak.
narrow it down, to get it very close. Plus
Well,
it's subject
this
to
guy
change.
did.
Yeah, what'd he come up with?
Well, it was 2011, so
Yeah.
nobody's gonna take those figures tonight. It's the process that he went through. And as I say, there are several processes to get the chocolate cake on the table. So you can argue about process, but there's one. Where's the protection to the town roads during the decommissioning process? This is the question to two lawyers. That is where the answer is. It is in the decommissioning plan. The issue can also be addressed at the time of demolition, as such an action will usually require a special type of building permit, and this can trigger bonding and insurance coverages. Decommissioning bonds can also be required to cover restoration plans, including roads, and even a road use agreement can be required as part of the decommissioning plan. There are lots of options, and the decommissioning plan is where these choices are usually reflected. Thus, the town board should not approve a decommissioning plan without post-decommissioning roadway plan in place. Okay, you want me to withdraw my motion?
I don't know.
You don't know? Oh, yes or no? That's your only choice. Okay, on my own volition, I will withdraw the motion on Resolution 2016-55. No, yeah,
that was it.
55. And it will be on a future agenda. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I do have one issue I need to talk about.
Oh, you want to add to the agenda? Okay.
I'd like to,
Ooh.
I'd like to add to the agenda too.
Oh, you want
I
to?
have to too.
Well,
Oh, no, I have
mine's
my
probably
agenda.
simpler. I'd like to add to the agenda a public comment period at the end
Of this meeting?
of this meeting.
Oh, sure. And so let's get to the complicated one.
Not that it's so complicated. With all these papers tonight, I'm trying to find my right papers is all, but maybe somebody else has a copy of it.
That's yours.
Yeah, that's not it, although you can keep it if you want to. That would help.
I was writing down some of the numbers here because
Which is, why don't you keep that one then? What I was actually looking for was a copy of the resolution that we did at the board meeting a month ago, which changed the date at which we were going to do the final,
The extension?
the FSEIS approval, when we're gonna get that done. And we changed it to July 15th, and at this point, since, as far as I know, we haven't heard from either Labella or Black Oak Wind Farm in terms of the responses to any of the many comments that were made. I just can't imagine that in the next 3 weeks, we're gonna have time to get all the information from those people, go over every one of the 1,063 pages of it, and come up with a unified answer that is with Labella. So in any case, I don't need to belabor that, but I think we should add at least 2 months to that ending date.
I will put that on the regular agenda for July.
For the
That's
July
prior
meeting.
to the extension period, as you stated, as you said.
Okay, and the July meeting, I think, is on the,
13th, I think. I think it's,
well, it's before the 15th, because it would have to be before the 15th, which is when we put on our end date. And I guess I just need to understand why we wouldn't deal with it tonight.
You got a resolution that you
Um,
want to read in full, that, you know, parrots the one from...
If you'll give me about 5 minutes, I will find where to put it. What I was gonna do actually was just read the last resolution and change the date.
So if you can find it to read it.
I don't think I did that.
You recognize this road use agreement?
Yeah,
Here's the,
yeah.
here's the most recent one. This is
Yeah.
the big fat one. What's this one? This still one on? This is something that,
I'm not throwing mine out.
but we're not using it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, but it's different from this one, which is the one we're talking about today.
Which one is it?
There's one that had 45 days on it.
Yeah, I have 2 different ones here. I'm trying to think which is the right resolution.
Yeah. This is the one.
This is the current one. No?
like, I think it was 2 pages, and it would have had the date of July 15th on the second page.
No, I thought Dan was this little short one here.
All right. Let's
Yeah.
look at that.
Which I think is what I have here. So, that's what,
Okay, we gotta listen.
are we ready?
That was a yes.
Oh.
And this is based on Resolution 2016-50. Does that seem like the right number?
It does,
Okay.
yeah.
So I would like to make Resolution 2216-55.
55.
whereas a predecessor in interest of Black Oak Wind Farm LLC, the project sponsor, filed a site plan application with the town board of the town of Enfield pursuant to the town of Enfield's Wind Energy Facilities Local Law Number 1 of 2009 for the development of 7 wind turbines, wind power generating facility, the project. And whereas on June 9th, 2010, the town board passed a resolution accepting its role as lead agency pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act and its implementing regulations at 6 NYCRR Part 617, collectively referred to as SECRA. And whereas after preparation of both draft and environmental impact statements on December 14th, 2015, the town board issues a finding statement for the project pursuant to SECRA. And whereas on June 24th, 2015, the town board received a submission from the project sponsor outlining two minor modifications to the project. And whereas on July 8th, 2015, the town board determined that a supplemental environmental impact statement or modified finding statements was not required for the modifications submitted on June 24, 2015. And whereas the project sponsor further proposes to potentially relocate 2 of the approved wind turbines to 2 of 3 proposed locations, as well as relocate a substation, add a new permanent wind measurement tower just south of Turbine 4, and relocate approximately 8,400 lineal feet of buried collection line. But, except as noted, the project would otherwise remain as consisting of 7 wind turbines generating 16.1 megawatts of electricity utilizing the GE 2.3-107 model wind turbines. And whereas the project sponsor prepared a draft supplemental environmental impact statement, DSEIS, assessing the potential significant adverse environmental impacts associated with the proposed modifications to the project as summarized above. And whereas on March 9th, 2016, the town board passed a resolution accepting the DSEIS as complete. And whereas the public comment period for the DSEIS expired on April 22nd, 2016, and whereas the town board is now required to prepare a final SEIS for the project, FSEIS, now therefore be resolved by the members of the town board of the town of Enfield as follows. Section 1, pursuant to section 617.9A52 of the SECRA regulations, the town board determines that additional time is necessary to prepare the FSEIS adequately, and therefore is extending the time frame to complete the FEIS to September 15, 2016. Section 2, the town board further directs that notice of this resolution shall be filed and circulated to the extent required by any applicable ordinance, statute, or regulation. Section 3, this resolution shall take effect immediately upon adoption. So that was just a reading of 2016 number 50, with the only change in it being the date from July 15, 2016 to September 15, 2016.
Second.
You're asking for one or you're seconding it?
No, I'm asking for a second.
Second.
Okay. Discussion? Call.
I have a discussion. Can I butt in here? I have many things to say, so it may be a long night.
Do you want to wait for the public comment period? and-
That's fine, I can do that, except for you just voted on something that could have an impact. And it just seems like the landowners are being, basically getting the brunt on this. What was it that you just said about, there was a section in there that was, it seemed like it was not, what was it that had to do with landowners? Or it didn't have anything to do with landowners. I think that was the problem, actually.
We're having a discussion on the motion.
I understand that, but isn't the motion passing a particular paragraph or aren't you doing that?
It's only passing an extension of the time when we are required to approve and complete the final supplemental environmental impact statement.
Yeah, I think the problem that I had with what you said was that the public, the time period for the public to respond was like April 28th or something like that.
Well,
Yeah.
but
I wasn't even in town at that point. And, you know, I think that there should be more, you know, another chance for public people to respond to this whole thing.
How many pages do we have now? Over 1,000?
Because
No,
quite
500.
frankly, it's not fair. I mean, I get back and I just get, you know, I'm supposed to swallow this. I don't think it's gonna happen. I'm not rolling over on this one. You know,
Well, I-
all of a sudden, the site is going up next to my property, you know, sorry.
Have you looked at all the comments that have been submitted? Because I can't imagine anything that wasn't covered.
Well, the
far
comments
as-
have been covered. What does that mean? What does that mean?
That, whatever you add is probably, I would bet, has already been submitted.
As part,
So what does that mean? It's been submitted.
That it's.
Does that mean that, you know, someone took that into account?
The next part of the process is that all the comments, that this many pages of comments, will be looked at by Black Oak Wind Farm.
Mhm.
And they are free to make any comments that they wish to make. They don't have to make any, but they are free to make one.
The only,
Then,
the
let me-
only
let
thing
me
I have to
finish.
say at this point is, I think that a lot of the people who are landowners, who this thing actually is really affecting, are kind of like waking up to the fact that, you know, this is a big deal. And like you said yourself, earlier on, you didn't have any of the town, you know, the amount of townspeople was minuscule. And now, you know, I think that a lot of the ones that are gonna be affected by this have an opinion, have a voice, they, you know.
Right.
And, you know, it's taken a while, but the problem is, and I would say, oh, I was at fault here, but if the thing is done on the down low, without telling landowners, without giving us a voice, and then passing it just as quickly as you possibly can, that is hardly fair.
Well,
this is a seeker process. It is set by New York State.
Mhm.
It is a process during which potential dangers of this project are evaluated and weighed.
Okay, I can,
Part of that is at least one public hearing, which one would hope addresses the potential hazards. But the municipal body cannot control what is said at a public hearing,
Mhm.
other than slander and,
right, right.
so, public comment is part of the environmental impact statement process.
Mhm.
I am not positive what weight a public hearing has or what weight comments have, because I haven't been through this process only once before.
Mhm.
And the town of Enfield has been pretty forthcoming in advertising meetings.
I disagree with that completely, completely. In fact, you know, I mean, a lot of these things that you even want to vote on like quickly without even people knowing about it is, you know, an example of that. Another example is, I didn't know anything about it. A number of other landowners knew nothing about it, you know. So I totally disagree with that.
Well, this resolution that Mike just read is giving us 2 more months to take into consideration all the comments that were submitted, so.
That's a good
So
thing.
we're not-
But
we're
is
not rushing
there
anything.
more public hearings?
No,
Why not? I mean,
because under the seeker process in New York State, we are not required to have another public hearing.
you're not required, but it said at least one.
Well, we've had two.
When was the second one? Are we talking about the comments where everybody wrote in, or are we talking about?
There were 2 meetings. in
Public
April.
hearing, public hearing is a meeting.
So both of those, I was not here, was unaware of any sort of site changes. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm here now.
Okay,
Should
and
we-
3 minutes.
Should we get
And
back
we
to-
have a motion on the floor to extend the completion of the supplemental environmental impact statement process to September 16. That's the motion before us.
15.
Any other discussion?
Would you mind if I talk to the lady from Black Oak and ask her a question in relation to this?
Is it
It's relation to
to the
motion. Yeah,
extension?
it's relation to the extension.
Okay.
Yeah. The reason why is you're talking just reminded me that actually we try to anything we're gonna take an action on, we try and have it be visible a meeting ahead, and I realized that this wasn't visible a meeting ahead, and I would wonder if for Black Oak it would be helpful or good for them, for me to wait until the next meeting to actually ask for a vote on this.
I don't think it matters.
Okay. Okay, I guess then I'll go ahead and keep it in place.
Any other discussion? Call the vote.
Councilperson Carpenter?
Aye.
Councilperson Handstein?
Aye.
Councilperson Miles?
Aye.
Supervisor Ryder?
Aye. Okay, we will now enter into public comment at the end. Anybody got a timer? I didn't bring my timer with me.
I got one on
3
my phone.
minutes.
I got one on my phone, I think.
Raise your hands, those that wish to speak. Tammy Ailing, starts with A.
I was just curious, I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about the toxicity, you know, if they do catch on fire. Is it, not that, I've read and seen some, I mean, it's probably pretty rare. But I was just curious of how bad that is and how much of the blade does catch on fire versus just the motor part of it? And is it just the oil? And how damaging is it to the people in the area?
Does everybody want to hear the answer to that? Or just at the end?
Maybe just.
I'll
for me
give you
too.
the answer.
Just the end?
We did.
Two
have a-
choices.
We did have a long discussion of that in the committee meetings too.
Oh, no,
Cool.
we can't get up there. I was just curious about the public, the people that live in that area, or even downwind, which I am. But the people that are directly involved, how bad is that going to be if that happens? Is it an evacuation situation, or is it going to be just a minor situation?
Right, Ann said she'd like to give the answer at the end.
I have a legal opinion on this. Does not strike the lawyer as being essentially about wind farms. One could legitimately ask this question about any structure or facility. When a farm burns down and fertilizer, herbicides, and pesticides are burned and dispersed over neighboring lands, what's the protection for the neighbors? Maybe we should. What about when a house burns and the plastic and the plumbing and the siding and the tires and the asphalts and sealants and roof become volatile VOCs, volatile something, and particulates and settle upon neighboring lands? Does the building code thus ask about protecting neighbors from such dispersal by fire? Should it? Compounds? Volatile organic compounds? That seems oxymoron, but when a solar panel leaks or burns, is this the question asked of solar farms? Should it be asked? The amount of toxic materials used in and in the production of solar panel technology is stunning. I'm not sure about this, but it certainly is not exclusively about wind turbines. But it does point to a general hazard arising from the use and the development of land. The release of pollutants is a serious matter, so much that local regulations addressing cleanup, storage, transportation, disposal, and many other aspects of this issue are exclusively managed and regulated by New York State and the U.S. government. In short, preemption plays here. So if the town board has identified environmental releases of dangerous compounds or toxic pollution impacts as part of the impacts to be analyzed and studied in the EIS, then such concerns should be addressed. If it's not part of the scoping of the DEIS, then the question may become one of procedure.
The only reason I'm asking is that I haven't heard of a solar panel catching on on fire, only the wind turbine, because the solar panels, I believe are still relatively new. I don't think I've ever heard anything, but as a firefighter going to a scene, I am a little cautious of what I am breathing in, if it's a car, a house, whatever the structure may be, whatever it is. We're breathing in things in there, trying to pass a law for firefighters that do get cancer from these materials over time. I believe probably most likely paid, but this is something maybe people should think about when voting is done on certain materials being used in certain things, the solar farms, wind turbines, things like that. You're putting your people at risk that are coming to help possibly save you. There's a lot of things you have to think about now. I mean, I've thought about more being in the service than I have ever thought about.
Yeah, and our wind farm advisory committee, I think several months ago, we asked Roger Walker, fire chief, to come in and talk about how they would respond to it. And part of it, part of that was they will receive more specific training on how to deal with it, but also noted that, you know, if something's burning up there, they don't have the facilities to deal with that, and they would probably just let it burn out. If something came down and started grass fires or down lower, they can be better equipped to deal with that. But that was something that they would receive more specific training when that time came.
Well, the wind law itself says fire protection plan, a fire protection and emergency response plan that complies with the Tompkins County All Hazards Mitigation Plan and is created in consultation with the fire department having jurisdiction over the proposed site. So this is saying that there needs to be a fire protection
Yes,
plan in
it's
place.
it's in the law.
They've begun that process, they haven't completed it, and there were actually a number of questions that were asked in the wind farm committee meeting that didn't get answered at the time and really need to be answered before, particularly issues about toxic smoke from burning, and the fact that you'll need breathing protection, not only for the people that are there fighting the fire, but for the people who live nearby as well.
I mean, they burn garbage burning, so, and that's a ban, so think about all the things that are out there, and it's not just that, there's many things
The
that.
blades create quite a bit of really lethal looking smoke. I don't know what it'd have to do to kill you, but it's pretty bad looking stuff.
They're composite material, and they probably will burn.
So too fast.
So they burn.
Maybe not rapidly, but
Oh, they burn rapidly.
They
You
burn
looked at the
rapidly?
Well, I'm
looked
just
at the
thinking,
pictures.
I'm just thinking
Especially
about,
watch
I'm just thinking about
YouTube
what
videos.
policy is gonna
They
come out,
probably will
possibly
burn.
come out. I'm not gonna say
Dan's
it's gonna
version,
happen, but
'cause
possibly
that's
can come
the,
out. And when there is a
town
call,
of
that's
it
what I
is,
think
but-
about,
Yeah,
what
that's
am I
what I thought.
doing to
This was a very
myself
short one.
as a
Yeah.
So I've
responder?
got two
What am I
facts.
risking
Just
my
like
life
that
for,
one,
because
the
I'm a
other fact,
volunteer,
now
I have a
you-
family to take care of too. And this is something people should think about that live in that area, also the board, as far as taking care of your town people. You know, like I said, all of us would be affected because we're downwind. Depends on the night.
Probably for the town board, it would be actually very helpful if you, as a fire person,
Yeah.
would get in touch with your fire chief and make sure that you feel comfortable that breathing protection apparatus is
I don't do
in place.
SCBA though, because that requires a numerous
They're-
amount
I'm not
of
sure exactly what it
hours. Besides, I'm not 30 years old or 20 years old to be able to do the
Right.
type of vigorous training that they have to comply to for New York State. So I'm not SCBA certified. We only have a handful of people. I'm not even sure the number we have in our department.
Well, so obviously a lot has to be done still.
Yeah, there's a lot of training and people just don't understand.
But it sounds like a house
Just
fire can have as much toxic materials as a wind turbine with a vinyl
Have
siding
you looked at
pipes.
those lights burning online? That's what they look
I-
like.
Solar panels is another thing to think about.
Yeah.
How do you respond to that?
It's huge billows of just dark black smoke, which is not the same kind of smoke you get in a house fire typically. It's more of a
Even when
gray.
the shingles burn?
Shingles are probably less toxic than
Shingles
your.
will probably give you the black smoke, yeah, but, you know, I know certainly things like fiberglass and plastics, when they burn, you're not supposed to breathe that air.
Oh, yeah, like a vinyl siding, plumbing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if there's smoke like that, just you leave and don't breathe it, I would say,
Yeah.
until it's out.
Yeah, well, I think she's just asking that we know what's gonna happen and we have protection in place for it, which I think is a good idea.
Raise of hands, who wishes to speak. You're next.
Brad.
Sorry. Connor, Mr. Connor.
I'll be quick. I'm just asking again the comment I put forth during the comment period. And I have not received an answer, nor do I believe I can get a straight answer. But in that, I ask, why are we pursuing this project that is absolutely worthless in purpose? Let's get Black Oak to answer that.
This is not
2013,
the
20.
form. This
Well,
is
it's
public
totally-
comment.
It's totally
addressed to the
relevant
board.
to Black Oak Wind. The project is worthless. Prove me wrong.
Public
23
comment
million.
is for the purpose of addressing the board. That is the purpose that is in our guidelines. And
Okay.
you are free to address the board as a whole.
Okay, then I ask the board, why are we pursuing this project that is absolutely worthless in purpose? Has the town board not done their homework to just look and see the plain, simple truth that this can no way, shape, or form even come close to delivering on its promise to save the planet, save our grandchildren, save our children? It has no measurable contribution and purpose. It will make no difference to climate change whatsoever if Black Oak happens or not. So I ask the board, why are we doing this?
I can try to answer that with a question.
$45,000 for a community building.
Yeah, is it worth destroying this community socially?
Exactly.
I can try to answer that with a question.
Okay,
It's not gonna affect the climate, but people are doing their small part. For example, if I vote in the presidential election, I know it's not gonna be determined by one vote, and my vote isn't gonna change the outcome. But I vote anyway because
well,
if
yeah.
nobody did anything,
But
nobody
you're
voted.
talking something that is totally irrelevant. Your vote doesn't matter. Your vote for that, we're talking about these turbines that are gonna be put in people's backyards. We gotta deal with all these regulations.
Right, but you're asking why we're doing that if it's not gonna solve the
It
problem of
isn't
climate
even gonna
change.
make any measurable
Right.
contribution.
So, like your vote in the presidential election, it's not gonna change the outcome. But-
Exactly, but whether I allow my vote, whichever way I make it, it isn't gonna make a bit of difference, but that's my point. Why are we going ahead with this when it has no measurable contribution in purpose?
Well, if it happened all over, in theory, it could make a difference, like the voting. If everybody votes, it makes a difference. But if everybody says, well, my one vote doesn't matter, so I'm not gonna bother, then,
And would you like one of these in your yard?
no.
Exactly.
That's the point.
That is the point.
Oh, I totally
Allowing
get
this,
that,
we're
yeah.
allowing these to go in, but
Well,
everybody's
I
selling.
don't mind if one's in my backyard.
You don't live here.
I do too live
You
here.
live in
Way
Mecklenburg.
over there, you aren't gonna be anywhere
You
near
live
the
in Mecklenburg.
turbines.
You're not gonna get any of this fallout.
It is in Enfield,
It's actually, yes, technically.
just that way a little bit.
Past the
Yeah.
store.
I can't be an
Whatever.
elected official unless I'm a resident of the town
But it's
that I'm
not
elected.
like-
I will take a slightly different,
Okay, I'd be glad to.
answer to that is that the town board is not pursuing that. Black Oak is pursuing the project, but the town board, the town has to respond to that proposal. It's not the town's
Well, it seems
project.
like the town board is bending over more than
It is
backwards.
Black Oak's project, not the town's project.
Great, that's fine, but here, the town board is supposed to look out for the interests of this community.
And
Exactly.
I think I'm trying to do that,
Yeah,
but
and that's my point.
I think we are as a whole.
Well, yeah, for your kids and that, but this is the thing. This has no measurable contribution and purpose whatsoever.
Well,
And it would take
you're
thousands
entitled
of
to
Black
your
Oak.
position.
So why not let it go somewhere else where there isn't people in close proximity? Or add the 7 turbines to existing wind farms to get the effect? But why destroy our community over something that is not going to deliver what they're telling us or their investors? Protect our
Well,
future.
they haven't promised that it's gonna solve climate change or global warming, have they?
Yeah, but the bottom line is, there is no measurable contribution. The only contribution in here is to wealth, private and professional recognition of others. And now that this has gone this far, they're not gonna wanna back down. That's a slap in the face. They don't wanna hear this truth. I tried publication to get this to the Voice, and I've got proof now from forcing responses from them. They are not the voice of the people, but the voice of their sponsors. Because they will not publish the piece that I put in here, that I submitted. So I'm gonna take it elsewhere. Let the public decide. Are we gonna allow something that is not gonna make a bit of difference at all?
Well, you know, my solar panels that I had put up, they're not really
We're
gonna
not
make a
talking
bit of
solar
difference
panels.
either.
But we're not talking
But-
solar panels. Solar panels are ground mounted. They're right in your yard. Anything that happens there is contained within that yard.
And you decided to put those up.
Yeah.
We're
and
not
they're in your
deciding.
yard.
This is not our, no one's asked us.
Right, but I'm just going to the point that it's not gonna make any difference as far as climate change goes, but I did it anyway because it's just my small part. And I think that's what the investors are.
That's lovely, and I do
thinking,
my small part too. I drive a fucking Prius, you know, but, you know, quite frankly, you know, there's nothing that's been said about, you know, I hear nothing that protects the landowners, that protects the people of the town. Nothing. You know, we're
Well,
talking
that's
about
coming.
oil spillage, and then say, if that goes into my drinking water and completely pollutes that, well, who's paying for that? Is the town paying for that? Is Black Oak paying for it? Or is my lawyer gonna have to sue the shit out of everybody?
Dan said that liability insurance would probably cover that.
And who's gonna pay for the fact that the property value is gonna go down?
Well,
I don't wanna
we're-
hear
we're
that
discussing
it's not
that.
gonna go down.
Yeah,
Don't
we're-
even give me that shit.
No, we're discussing that.
A lot
We're
of
working
things
on that.
Are comments that were made in the public commentary. There was like, what, 500,000 pages of public comments? And the board still has to address that in a finding statement, in a final EIS and a finding statement. So we will be considering those things.
Well, I'd like for you to do more than consider them. This is pretty big stuff to people who are being imposed upon, this whole thing imposed upon, who do not want it.
I understand that completely, and I'm sympathetic to that, and,
I want more than sympathy. I want you
Well,
to
right.
say no.
No to
That's what I want.
To the whole project?
Yes, that's what you know,
Bring forth the truth.
or how about this? You know, as a solution, there is, I'm sorry, but
Oh, no.
yeah, there is a solution of getting a bladeless, you know, wind turbine. These are made now, and as far as I can tell, you know, from the research that I've done on it, it's much, 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 much smaller. It has no infrasound at all, and it doesn't make the noise factor. It really doesn't do any of the harmful things, and you know, wouldn't need this kind of like road, you know, stuff that we're talking about.
What is it?
It's a bladeless turbine.
They're like a tuning fork almost.
It's amazing. But this is the new technology. You're going to be getting these old style archaic turbines in here that are going to be going out of date in probably 3 to 5 years. Then you're stuck with them. Or you're having to, you know, muscle people to get them out of here. But, you know, at least go with a newer technology that makes sense, that's clean, that doesn't have the side effects.
Now, when I say I'm sympathetic to your concerns, that doesn't mean that that's all there is. That means because I'm sympathetic, I'm
understand.
working on ways, you know,
To ameliorate.
I just want to see more guts from the board. So I don't feel like I have to be here at every frickin', you know, hanging on every word. You know, I just want to see more guts.
Well, I proposed, and I think it might go through, a property value compensation demand from Black Oak.
Well, I think that would be a can of worms, and I'd like to see what that looks like. Because my place, I put hundreds of thousands of dollars into it from where it was, which was already great. So I'd like to see that property thing, because I doubt if it'll cover, you know, my one-way ticket somewhere.
Yeah, basically it asks Black Oak to pay the difference between a sale price and the appraised value of the property.
There is,
also-
there is a process by which you can actually become a member of the board. There may be an opening January 1st.
You can have mine.
Yeah,
If
there
you'd
will-
like to
there's
see more
some-
about
Well, as long as I'm here, I suppose.
That's how the way
Yep.
it's set up right now. That's how the process works, so.
There is-
Ann would love that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, there is an opening January
It'd be
1st.
different.
Yeah, it would be different.
Virginia spot's probably.
As long as we didn't have to, as long as they didn't have to talk about
We had some other raised hands too.
town
Yes.
picnics.
Yeah, probably good before he dragged us to it.
See, I've been in the home of people on Black Oak that don't want the turbines, and I sat down in a home of people who invested money, their own personal money in the project, small investors.
Mhm.
So somebody's gonna lose, one way or another. And
Yeah, and it should be them.
It's a bad investment.
I'm sorry about that. It's not their property. They don't have to live next to it,
I understand that.
you know? Sorry about your investment. But
And they could say-
if you
and they could
invested
say-
that, you probably got a few more dollars somewhere.
And they could say, well, sorry about the loss of your property value. It's
Well,
gonna be you.
that's not an
you know?
option. If I'm living in a town that I respect, you know, and that I think that people should have the people's back in the town, you know, that's,
Well, these are people who live in a town too. but-
do they have them in their yard? Are they having them in their yard?
No, but it's the same issue
They
where,
are.
where they
Well,
stand to lose money
all-
or the property.
They
owner.
have a vote then, as far as I'm concerned. And they can keep them in their yard. I don't think their yard is next to mine, though. Right?
No, it isn't.
They can do it as far as I'm concerned. That's their prerogative, if, you know, as long as it's, you know, not affecting me, my livelihood, my property value, you know, all power to them. I'm live and let live in that way. You know, as long as it doesn't, as long as they're not demolishing my life in the process,
Yeah.
which is what I feel like this whole thing will do. That's why I'm here every frickin' time.
Yeah, and I think if I was in your shoes, I'd feel the same way and do the same thing.
Mhm.
When we saw the controversy, the first meeting I went into after that contentious one in the end of March, I remember walking in and, oh, are you here for the windmills? I said, no, I'm here for the truth. And as I examined the truth, and then it became overwhelming to try and compare who was right and see, okay, is the opponents exaggerating? Are the opponents exaggerating? What's right and what's fact? When you start looking at a project, I've wrote appropriations and I've done hundreds of projects over my career. And the bottom line is that project better deliver what you promised. And this is gonna deliver nothing. So as a professional, I would be reckless.
It's gonna deliver electricity in it,
Not to us, not to anybody here.
Yeah,
to the
what's-
grid.
To the grid,
Not to us.
To the grid.
No benefit.
Yeah.
to the grid, but still, it's
like a
being
drop in the
generated
ocean.
elsewhere. Why, when this has no contribution in what they're claiming?
Well, one of the things is, we are a municipality, we're not private industry. We don't get to pick and choose the projects. This is presented to us, the authority we have is over land use. Some limited authority, because previously in Enfield, no one really wants to do land usage, no zoning, no, bad. So, there is a wind farm law that has to do with usage of land, and it's a process, and we are going through the process, and we have to go through the process because in America, there are industries who have companies and want to do their business. We are not engineers, and we don't get to say, no, you can't come in here unless we have some land usage rules. We have a land usage rules, now we have to follow the land usage rules that we made. And that's what we're doing, we're following the rules.
It doesn't seem like you're following the rules, though. It seems like you're bending over on
It
part of
does.
the board.
It does.
It's not the same.
I certainly
thing.
haven't. I'm not gonna
We're
speak for
watching
other
you
board
every
members.
single
but-
meeting, listening to every single meeting that I've been to, and I think, like I said, the last one, it's a lot of hours, it's a lot of time, but it seems like Mike and Mike, in my opinion, are actually the ones who are saying to you, no, wait a second, what are we voting on? Take a chance, take a step back, let's really discuss this, instead of just pushing it through.
What do you
That's
feel
what
I've
I'm
pushed,
seeing.
what do you feel I've pushed through that is?
I just, the last couple of things you guys just talked about, Mike was the only one who said, wait a second. Buddy's telling you no, and you voted yes. What the heck was that?
Right.
There's,
He's your
that
town
can be,
supervisor, he's saying, no, there's a problem. Listen to his problem and work it
right,
out
but
before you
his
vote it.
concerns can be addressed at a later date.
Not
that-
when you're
that's-
voting on something you just passed.
No, you, apparently you didn't understand what we passed.
Apparently I
It
didn't.
clearly states in there that these issues can be addressed in the final,
You're not even
stuff.
listening to your town supervisor either, though, or your town highway supervisor. He's trying to talk to you, and I watched the actions. It's
I
a
asked,
shame.
I
It's
asked
a
Buddy
shame.
questions. I listened to, I asked him, in fact, I wrote his concerns right on his paper. Penalties, escrow, bonding, turnkey. I asked him a question, I wrote his concerns on his paper, which can all be addressed later.
And that stuff was asked at the last board meeting, and we still don't have no answers to it. That's what, and there's been lots more, not with the new members here so much, but in the past years, there's been questions asked, and they haven't been answered.
Yeah, but this road
How long
use
do you
agreement
get
that
to
we
answer
approved
questions?
doesn't mean that we're not gonna address this. This can still be
Well-
addressed, is my point.
I'm just saying, that it's the same one that was asked at the regular meeting too, and there was nothing brought forth. It's like, okay, we'll put it to the side over here, we don't care. That's what it looks like. I'm just telling you what it looks
Well.
like.
I will recognize Ms. Lemke.
So, I recognize that this is a representative government and you guys are our representatives and we are beholden to you to make the right decisions. I think that you need to take health and safety into account as all of this, and some of you are clearly looking at health and safety, and that's good. I think there's a lot of frustration with the residents that there's no process for them to be heard. A lot of things have happened in the past where things got rushed through, accepting the SEIS as complete, things like that. One of the things that can help this whole process, and I appreciate you giving us privilege of the floor at the end of this meeting, but it would be better to give us privilege of floor at the beginning of your meetings, all of the meetings, and to put the documents that you're going to discuss out on the website and give us an opportunity, a real opportunity, read those documents, come to the privilege of the floor, and be able to comment in a thoughtful way about what it is you are about to discuss, so we at least get an opportunity to say, hey, before you, our representatives, make a decision, we'd like you to hear what we have to say about what you are about to discuss. Setting these meetings up with no privilege of the floor and sticking these documents on the website a day or two in advance of the meetings is not productive to create the trust with the town that you're really giving us an opportunity to allow you to hear what we have to say before you, our representatives, make a decision on our part. So I would like to ask the board to do a better job of getting the documents out on the website far enough in advance that we can actually spend time and read them. They're not short documents, they're not easy documents. We need more time to look at them and give us privilege of the floor, not at the end of the meeting, but at the beginning of the meeting so that we can actually give you some of our feedback before you have your discussions.
Thank you.
And how many times have you asked that? I know of 2 other times you've already asked that of the board. And nothing, no response to it.
I do like the way that Tompkins County does it, and they actually provide a docket and, with all the relevant documents, ahead of the meeting, and like one thing that you can download and, hopefully not print out, but at least look at. I think the mechanics of being a small town may make that difficult, but I would like to see more effort put into that too.
Well, you could just take your phone and take the picture and upload it to the website.
Now
It's
it's
not that big of a deal.
It's at the beginning, I'm
I
pretty sure.
think, yeah, I think it's at the beginning of the meetings.
Beverly, did you have your hand up?
I did. I just think that it's basic, that the thing that everyone is concerned about is we see such force to get these things passed in such a hurried manner. And the passion that the supervisor feels about this project seems to override the passion that she has for the town that she lives in. And
Personal attacks are not
She didn't
appropriate.
call your name. And quit interrupting.
I'm not attacking
It's the
you.
rules.
We asked about this voting thing last time at the last meeting, and you said you just put it out there for disclosure, and then you put out a meeting with no privilege of the floor, 2 days, and then the agenda changed 2 or 3 times before tonight. That is not trustworthy. And I see your face getting red, and I wonder why you care so much about helping them and not helping the people that have the concern.
I think this is a, you know, being a representational democracy that, you know, Supervisor Ryder.
You didn't even know you'd had to come here tonight, Mike. That's why you didn't have your part done, because you didn't even know you were gonna have to have it done. Is
Yeah,
that not
it's-
correct?
It's something that I've known I've had to do, it's my fault
But you
for not
didn't know
being
it was
prepared.
gonna be
Yeah,
tonight.
Yeah.
Till when?
But this, you know, it's a representational democracy, and, you know, Supervisor Ryder has every, you know, right to have her opinions.
She does, but it's not trustworthy.
To have, well, you know, and she has every right to act in terms of whatever, you know, she wants to do. But there's 4 other people on the board that can check that.
3. There's only 3 usually.
Well,
What?
technically.
Virginia is never,
Technically
ever
4.
here. I don't understand how that could be a voting situation when she's never here. I don't understand how there could be a board member when there's not a board member.
Well, that highway agreement that you just chastised me for passing, and, you know, Mike voted in favor of that also. So there were 3 votes in favor of it, so Virginia being here couldn't have changed that.
You still didn't listen to your town supervisor, highway supervisor, did you? When he said no, he didn't like it.
No.
Yeah, I did listen to him. I wrote down his concerns on the
But
paper,
it was
remember?
still passed, is the point.
Right, and these can still be addressed later. I keep repeating that. I don't think you're listening to me.
No, that
These-
address
Be
later
addressed
thing,
now.
it just feels like by passing things, you're losing foothold. You're just constantly losing full, you know, you keep on saying, down the road, we'll just do, when we'll do it. You know, I don't believe that. I don't believe that's true. I think there's footholds that are being lost, you know, by passing it. You know, you say that this is an industry that comes in, we are obligated to let them, you know, to have us waste all this frickin' time and then to say no to them. It doesn't feel like that to me. It feels like you've got an agenda. And it feels like, you know, I'm sorry, man. It feels like it just doesn't feel like you're here in a lot of ways. It feels like you need to get some angst in, you know, but you know, that's why everybody, yeah, I second that. Yeah, that's cool. You know, and I don't even know, and I don't even think you know what it says. I mean, Mike, after he said, you know, sorry, Mike, but after you said, like, yeah, I second that, then you go, wait a minute. But I don't think that I agree with that if it's like, you know, it's like, you know, you can't agree to this stuff.
You don't understand what the seconding process means. It means you're ready to discuss it.
No.
That's all it means.
But I'll say that Ann does not act alone. She can, you know, bring any proposals and make any motions she wants to the table, as well as any of the rest of us 4 can do the same thing. And she cannot make decisions independently, that it's the board that ultimately makes those decisions. So, I mean, I would avoid trying to, you know, call, you know, her out. She's being very fervent to, you know, what she believes. You know, people may have differences of opinion, but there's 4 other board members that can check that.
You would like to speak.
Yes. We keep talking about the process that we're going through to see this to completion. It
No. Does that come when we decide whether we're gonna issue a permit or not? When is it? Or are we on a process, no matter what we do, the outcome is gonna be yes? Is there any a point in time when we can say no to this?
You want to explain that? You want me to?
You.
And I don't even know why we're asking that question.
Well, the lady did ask.
No,
Let's-
I understand,
let's
and
be-
I totally get it, but, you know, we are meekly asking, have we already been fucked? That's what we're meekly asking.
Let me answer her question.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
What happens at this point? The original draft supplemental statement has been submitted. Comments have been made. Right now, what happens to that statement and the comments is they all get addressed by the town, basically. The town can designate somebody else to do the addressing, which we've done to some degree with Labella, the company that Dan works with. We've asked them to help us address that. We've also asked Black Oak Wind Farm to address the comments as well. So whatever Black Oak says in relation to it, we will get to read. Then we will sit down with Labella and we will talk about how we would like to address all the comments that were made by all the people. There's about 500 pages of comments, okay? We will write out responses to those comments. And if they're simple comments that say, great job, keep going, there won't be much of a response to that. If somebody has a substantive issue that they've talked about with really significant points or with backup information that they need to do, it's incumbent upon the board or its representatives that we've designated to actually look at what that says and make a substantive response to it with some meaningful, information back to it, okay? When that gets all done, what happens is that paper gets put together with all the comments that people have made, with the original draft supplemental environmental impact statement, and with all the comments that we've responded to that paper, into a final supplemental environmental impact statement. That gets put out to the public to read and to look at for 10 days. Then the board sits down and says, what do we think about what's happened so far? What do we think about what Black Oak has said about what they're gonna do? What do we think about the comments that the public has made? What do we think about the comments that Black Oak's made to the public comments? What do we think is the right thing to do at that point? At that point, what's left to do is what they call the finding statement. And they say findings because we are going to find whether we are willing to approve the project or whether we want to say, no, we don't approve the project. Or whether we want to say, we will approve this project with certain conditions. And at that point, we can give the conditions to Black Oak and say, we will approve it based upon these conditions. If we do it based on conditions, we can give that back to Black Oak and they can say, we will comply with these conditions, or we won't, or maybe we'll kind of comply, this is how we'll do it. At which point it comes back to the board and the board says, yeah, okay, you did right, that's what we wanted, now we'll give you a yes. Or no, you didn't do right, we're not gonna give you a yes until you do it exactly the way you want. In any case, we could have said yes in the beginning, or we could have just said no in the beginning. We have to have a reason to say no. We have to have some valid reason based on what the New York State law says in terms of what it gives us for reasons that are valid. And we have to write out those reasons in the finding statements and make it very clear why we're saying no. But we can say no, we can give a reason. At that point, Black Oak can say, we don't think that your reasons are valid, and they could take us to court and have the courts decide whether they have a right to go ahead with the project or whether our reasons are valid enough to do that. And that's happened before in other situations in other towns. So that will happen as soon as we get done with our response to the comments, which we just made the date September 15th. So we have to be done by September 15th, or we have to make the date longer again. We have to do another extension. So once we've done those responses to the comments, then we will issue the final supplemental environmental impact statement. 10 days will go by, then it'll be our turn to do the findings. I think we get 30 days after that to issue the finding statement. Does that answer it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'd like to add, and maybe also simplify that detailed answer with it's not everyone's expecting, like saying, why don't you just say no? Well, we're obligated to follow the process through. This project was proposed to the town board, and the town board has to follow the process that's laid out by state law. So we can't just like, oh, we're just not gonna do that, we just say, you can't do this. We have to follow that process through.
Legally, the town board can't just say no, they have to have
Yeah.
a reason for saying no.
Yeah.
Well,
And
don't
you have to
say
have,
no,
be able to
because
reason
Black
Have to have a
Sea,
valid
Yeah.
reason.
they just
to
say
base
that.
your
There
decision.
has to be legal,
Yeah.
to Mike's point, there has to be a valid reason why they would turn the project down, and they have to go
Yes.
through the secret process to do that.
I see.
And it's not necessarily turning it down, it's setting conditions, saying, you know, we feel that because of X, that we feel that, you know, Y needs to be done. If the developer fulfills Y, then, you know, that will mitigate, you know, the concerning regs. And there could be multiple ones of those things. So again, it's probably not a yes and no answer, it'll probably be a document, I would assume. This is my first time through this process, it would probably be a document.
There's a document.
There's a document that, the finding statement that lays out, you know, well, we're concerned about these things. And so, that pretty much.
Yes, yes.
I'd like to point out that I met with Black Oak and an investor from Onyx who's going to put up the bulk of the money. And I mentioned to them that I'm concerned about people's property values losing value, people that find they can't live with the turbines, they want to leave, and they can't leave because they can't sell their property, or they take
Because
too
nobody
big a
else wants
loss.
to live with them either.
What's that?
Because nobody else wants to live with them either.
Right. And contrary to the claims, the inaccurate claims or assertions of some comments, in spite of being told directly that that's a deal breaker, I'm still pushing for it. And I want a resolution that says property owners will be compensated for lost property values, even though I was told by Black Oak that that's a deal breaker, and the investor.
But
Yeah,
what if
fine.
it is a whole Newhart family in business? They have weddings up there, so they're gonna give them money for their business too, and his business too? And
That-
then we're gonna have to, my
That's
kids,
the
I
thing.
can't build my house, when, we already put a well in, we are all excited to.
Well, if we can't find a legal reason to tell them they can't put those turbines up, then that resolution
We're screwed.
might stop it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not all about just property owning.
No,
It's about families.
no, it is not all
Yeah.
about property values.
Yeah.
First of all, there has to be, the decision about property values has to be based on real facts, not what you think might.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the statements in the environmental impact statement have to be based on peer-reviewed science, real science, and not 10 people's opinions.
It seems across board that, you know, property values have just plummeted, you know, every time that this happens in a residential area. So I don't think that's not science or it's someone's imagination. The same way the, you know, infrasound, which nobody talks about because they can't see it, you know,
They've been
thinks that
talking
that's
about it for
not a valid issue
5
either.
months here in Enfield.
What's that?
Infrasound.
Infrasound.
Yeah, we've been talking about that a lot.
It's, yeah.
What was the answer? Sorry, I didn't hear.
There's been a lot of discussion on infrasound.
Here in Enfield.
Both at the public meetings, at the Wind Farm Advisory Committee
Right,
meetings, and I
right.
think even at the regular town board meetings, it's been discussed.
Yeah, I know it's been probably brought up, but.
But it's all anecdotal.
Yeah, to me, it's like a major, I mean, to me, it's like there's a major thing, and that's a deal breaker, you know? I mean, and maybe, you know, I'll send emails to everybody about where that, this bladeless thing, turbine, because, you know, seems like that would be an option. That would be a, you know, everybody could be happy if we actually are going ahead and you know, entertaining this idea.
Another thing that's been a bit of a controversy or a little bit of a problem for me is that, is I know that Enfield residents, as Ann mentioned, are generally opposed to zoning, and the attitude is my land, I'll do what I want with it. And so there's a guy lives near me, he has a dirt bike track, and he runs his dirt bikes around there, and I have to listen to that, and it's not that big a deal. I mean, it's annoying, but I deal with it. And there's somebody else, I think they have a shooting range, and they're shooting, and
Right.
it's loud, and it's annoying.
But
And
that's Enfield, you know, and that's almost the
Right.
beauty of Enfield in a way. You know, I mean, but it's not private industry, you know, it's not, you know, we're talking about wacky individuals, you know, which are great. I mean, you know, you don't always love them, but, you know, they're doing something colorful.
well, you know, look at the Black Oak people as wacky individuals that want to put up some.
I'd
wind
rather
turbines
not,
back,
because
you know.
that's a little bit too widespread for my, you know, my palate. That's,
But my
that's.
point basically is that, on the one hand,
And it's not.
they're saying, we don't want zoning, we want to do what we want with our land, and now we're saying, no, I want you to tell these people that they can't do this with their land.
Black Oak is
So-
not a wacky individual. They are,
Right,
you
but the-
know,
the property owners, you want-
money-making business.
But you want to tell the property owners that, no, you can't put a wind turbine on your land
It's a-
and make money with it,
It's a
so.
little different, Henry, in the sense that they're not keeping you up at night, and they're not causing you to get
Right.
diabetes and cardiac problems, et cetera, because you can't sleep at night. I mean, so I mean, I think it's a question of scale, right? Like,
Mhm.
somebody running a dirt bike is annoying, but it's not.
They're
like-
not doing it all night.
Not doing it all night, where you
And
can't
constantly.
sleep, and constantly, when you can't, you know, they're doing it from time to time, but it's
Mhm.
not like 24 hours, 7, and you can't sleep, and you're developing health and issues and safety issues, right? Like, half my property is gonna basically be a no-go zone because of potential blade throw and ice throw, right? That's 20-some odd acres that I can't use.
For certain times of the year.
For all times of the year.
Oh, there's gonna be ice throw tonight?
No, but blades break off on these things.
She can't have full use of the property.
And I
because
know,
of that.
they say that it doesn't happen very often, but it's amazing how many of them have happened in the very recent past in western New York.
Yeah, why are we entertaining having any of them happen, quite frankly?
Because we
I know,
have
because you
no
have to.
zoning in
I get that you have
Enfield. Because
I get
we
that you
have
have
no zoning in Enfield. Not that this board's created it.
But it would be like your dirt bike never shut up.
Or the cows next door.
Well, the turbines they'll
Oh,
shut
yeah,
up now and then.
They
so,
might,
yeah.
you know, but
That's my
will the
understanding.
infrasound? Probably not. I mean,
Well,
that'll-
when they quit turning, when the
that'll
wind's
be-
not blowing, I mean, but.
that's
yeah,
a different thing, you
Yeah.
know.
Buddy,
I got a wrench, I want to throw it as a resident. When this all started again, it was about the setbacks. The signs say no near their homes, and the committee was formed to, I thought, was talking about the setbacks. Now we're to have them or not have them. What happened to the setbacks? Originally, that's what it was all about, to look at the setbacks and get them changed, get them more safe, not to get rid of the wind farm and not to have
Not
them,
enough room
but the
there.
setbacks, and that seems to have got lost.
We're actually beginning to work on the law right now, the last couple of meetings.
And I think what's a lot upsetting is you have these hearings and you have people from Lansing, Syracuse, Rochester, all around, Ithaca, Trumansburg come in and speak.
Yeah.
That block up there is what's being affected. Not over here on Hudsonville Road, not on Bosick Road, not anywhere else, not Trumansburg, that block over there. Harvey Hill Road and 327. That's what's being affected by it. Them people are the one that should be, and I'm not saying you're not, but those should be your primary people that you're listening to. Not investors from way out of town and everybody else.
They should not have a voice at
Well,
all,
we-
quite frankly,
What we
at
dis-
all.
What we discovered with the setbacks, buddy, was that there was no way for the wind farm to actually be able to happen at least 5 of the wind generators if we if we raise the setbacks enough, even enough to be in the lowest amount, which is 1,500 feet, even at 1,500 feet, most of the wind generators, there's no place to site them.
But that's what it was all started about, and you even sat there and talked about that you could change the setbacks and it would affect them, and it was legal because of health and safety.
And
So what happened to all that?
And setbacks are part of the public comment period too.
Because-
And that's still to be addressed.
When we brought that up to Black Oak, their response was they couldn't do the project if we.
Then
made
it
the
doesn't
setback.
happen.
That's exactly what's the point.
But you haven't changed the setbacks. You haven't done nothing with that to establish health and safety.
What Ann was saying tonight, and part of the memorandum or the resolution she wanted to pass, was that we were saying that the wind law changes that we make would not affect this project. And that's a question that's been asked a lot, and it's a legal issue, because the question is, can you retrofit an existing wind law to a project that's already in place and already had approvals? Can you go back and then make a new wind law and say, wait a minute, we want to change the setbacks, and so therefore you can't do it anymore?
But you sat there and specifically said at the very beginning that the attorney said you could for health and safety.
Right.
And you got that.
That's the
Well,
process
that's-
that's happening right now.
Yeah,
That's
it-
what's going on.
So change the law.
I got a letter email from Marcus, and I wanted to know about people that have abandoned their homes from having these turbines near them. And he sent me a website, or he sent me a video of some people that, in Australia, and interviews with them, and they left.
Well,
'cause
I'll
they-
give you something better, Henry. I'll give you Enfield.
Yeah, well, and so I Googled that location, Australia.
Give him what? I'm sorry, I wouldn't hear that.
I'll give him the facts in Enfield.
The facts in Enfield?
Let him finish what he's
Okay,
saying.
sorry.
Yeah, and immediately I found a study on the infrasound and the effects on people, where it basically said that it was all mental. People think they're going to get affected, and they are. And
who
this
put
was
that out? You know, probably a wind farm.
I didn't have time
Mentally
to
you're
look.
not.
I didn't have time to look into
How far away was
that.
the property line in the house from these wind turbines in Australia?
Farther away than these are going to
Oh,
be.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
You know, over thousands of people can't be wrong about this. There's not in their head, you know.
I think it's an area that needs more study.
Yeah, and nobody's studying it.
Well, the problem
because
is
it
that
doesn't pay.
in order to say to shut it down for safety reasons, as Ann said, have to have peer-reviewed science that'll hold
So
up
we're
in
gonna
court.
be the science after
Yeah,
it's
we're
all
gonna be
done?
the guinea pigs, actually.
Yeah.
Right.
You're the-
There's
No
already
way.
been, a lot of people that have lived near turbines, and some people say, yeah, it doesn't bother me, I'm
And a
fine
lot
with it.
of
And-
some
What if
say
like
the other
10 of
way.
us are
Right.
A lot.
people?
Yeah. So,
And
It's not worth it.
I'm not gonna be a guinea pig, for one.
Do you mind if I finish answering Buddy's question? When I talked to the lawyer about changing the law, we actually noted that there is one part of the law that allows us to ask for longer setbacks without having to change the law. There's a clause in the law that says you don't have to change it, but you can use this clause to ask for longer setbacks. That, to me, was a better way to do it, because it was much legally safer than changing the law and going through that whole process. So to me, that's what we're working on right now.
And that's what you're doing now, looking at that.
That's what I wrote in the comment.
Because my understanding, that's what this whole thing started about, the setbacks. Not whether you could have them or not have them. And it's like a lot of conversations, they get sidetracked. And we are there now. We don't want them or we do want them. That's not what I understand everybody was asking for.
There are definitely comments to the draft supplemental EIS that bring that up and that have to be addressed by the town and thought about by the town, and hopefully will be addressed by Black Oak as well. If Black Oak doesn't address it, then the town can decide, in its wisdom or not, that it wants to say, well, you didn't listen to this, we need higher setbacks, therefore we're not going to give you approval on a finding statement. But the town has to vote on that to happen. So.
Stay tuned.
I just
It's
was
not-
curious
It's
about
not,
Yeah.
it's
the
not,
setbacks.
it's not a done deal. Yeah.
Yes?
In the public comment periods, the compilation of all that material that comes in,
is it noted in there where these people are coming from that make the comments? Like if somebody's from Timbuktu and they're saying, oh yeah, we're in favor of the windmills there, is that noted? So
At
that
the
there's
public hearings that we held, it was emphasized by the meeting leader to state your full name and address prior to speaking. That's verbally speaking.
Right.
There is no control over what people write, whether they give their name and address.
But I mean, when
They
this
do
is
that.
all compiled.
Most of them do.
Most of them do.
Yeah, I think it's a practical matter, right? Most of the people who wrote in indicated where they were from.
In the compilation, in the written compilation.
They
that's
almost all
in
have
there.
names and addresses on them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my other question is, if Black Oak Wind Farms now owes money to the town, I don't think that bodes well for what the future economic partnership with this group is going to be. How can we get, what's the process for getting what's owed presently, until we get a few more $1,000 piled up that they owe us? What's going on with that?
I
It
don't,
just doesn't seem good.
I don't think it's a matter of them not paying, I think it's a matter of us asking, is that correct?
Well, there's a process. I'm sorry, there's a process. The first is I have to write a letter and demand payment and give them a time limit.
Has that been done?
I said earlier in this meeting, the secretary's working on it.
Are you working on it?
I'm not the secretary.
She's not the secretary. And you look in the budget and see if you see a line item for a secretary. I did not bring the paper with me on all the steps in the process.
Why?
Well, the developer's agreement just says that once it falls below $2,000.
I read the agreement. I've got it at home.
I think Ann may probably have some comments on that.
I don't know. Okay, this is an and too?
Yeah, yes.
That's okay, go ahead.
I don't know how many times, but we've owed money and we've paid it. I don't know
Right.
all, I mean, this has
Right,
happened recurring and we owe money and we pay it. So
right,
we have a good history of
yes.
keeping up on the payments overall.
Overall.
Not overall, yes. I mean, we owe money, we pay it.
There are
And
many,
this
many,
has happened-
many
this is
months
a small amount of.
that there's been $20,000 or $30,000 sitting in the
Right,
escrow
and pay
account.
it. So this is a recurring thing, so, and I just wanted to, quick reference, I'm not sure if it's the same documentary that,
This Australia
Henry-
thing?
Right, so, I haven't seen it, but I read some of the research and peer-reviewed articles about it, and so what my take on it was that people that had, invested in it or had, wind turbines on their property, so in some way we're getting some financial benefit from it. And they did not have gag orders not to speak adversely about it. They did not have that in their contracts. None of those people had medical issues. None of those people were bothered. None of those people had anxiety, sleeping. But it was only people that did not have investment in it. They were having, some of those people had anxiety and sleeping issues.
I've actually seen people who had financial gain. They were paid to have them on their property, and I've seen people say that their health was affected. Fine.
Marcia Sundman, who also commented on this a couple years ago, who specializes in oncology, and I know you know her, she said that this does affect you, and it can, it can be very detrimental to your health. It's not just imaginary. She is a professional. I don't know what website you're referring to as. I don't know what lawyer is being referred to when things are read, because it's not saying which lawyer said that. You're not citing what documentary you read, but Marcia was here in this town. She's an oncology specialist that I work with, and she said that there's a danger.
I think the reason why you need more study is that having been worked in survey research for a while, is that I've seen instances where you can have, even a well-collected data and survey, but you can cherry pick the anecdotal comments. And yes, those comments are valid. Those are made by real people, made by, that believe what they're saying, and it may actually be true. But you can cherry pick any comments to, on any side. But until that information is collected and analyzed in a more scientific and thoughtful process, then anecdotal evidence is really difficult.
Yeah, but it really has to do with who has what to gain. These people who are sick don't have anything to gain by telling their story. They're not getting money from it. People who have a gag order who can't speak about it, can't speak about it, or they're getting paid money. It's on their place. Maybe they're getting paid money. Fine, but the other people don't have any reason whatsoever to just make up this stuff.
And anecdotal evidence doesn't mean that they're making up information. That's the information
No,
that
I
they have
know.
and they believe to that.
I know. It would be more likely that the wind farms would be making up propaganda about this, or silencing other things. I do not put it past them at all, from what I've seen, from what I've read, from what I've experienced myself.
So the next question I have is about the substation. Now that we've moved it to Newfield area, what is the status of that? Do they have a moratorium? Are we following another town's, what they're doing? Because it does affect our town ultimately also. I'm just curious, does anybody go to the town meeting as far as talking to somebody, or are we conversing together to make sure everybody's knowing what both sides are doing? Because things have been moved and shifted, and how do we really know that these turbines are definitely gonna go into these certain spots? That's the problem I had with the road thing, I guess, is how do we know 100% that's exactly where it's gonna be placed when the substation is kind of in limbo, sort of, I thought?
Because that's the plan.
Well, I know, but I thought the substation was in limbo in Newfield, or they did possibly a moratorium to wait and decide to get all their facts together also, so I'm
The
just curious.
substation's in Enfield, they
Yeah.
need to go through
They can
Newfield
access
to
roads.
get
Okay.
to the
Okay.
access road.
There-
So that's what I guess I didn't understand, is are we actually talking to the other town?
I've gone to one town of Newfield meeting. I haven't, I don't have a regular conversation with them, but I've gone to one
I
meeting.
attend the meetings for
Yeah.
other reasons, but they've had a moratorium and they're preparing to modify their existing wind law, and that
Yeah.
they might be acting on it tomorrow, but I'm not sure. Or
I heard
next
it was
week.
imminent.
Yeah.
The town supervisor does not return my phone calls.
Yeah, I went to one of the meetings when they were, talking about their wind law, and it seemed like they had reasoned conversations about setbacks and other things, and basing things on facts and information that they had,
They
the best
were-
information they had available.
I'm not sure what the setbacks
Yeah.
were that they've come up with, but I
I
know
don't
that
know
they're gonna
either.
be a lot. Their setbacks were higher
Right.
than Enfield's originally, and they're gonna
Originally.
increase them, I believe.
They were higher and then they increased them, so they're
I believe that's what they're
they're higher
doing.
than they were before.
I believe so.
Yeah, they were like 750 feet to our 400 and some odd feet. They weren't massively, the property line setback was the same, but the setback from the house was slightly bigger, like it was 750 feet instead of ours is 500 or something. So it wasn't massively bigger.
We are the lead agency on the project.
Well, I was just curious though, if you have another town that's close to that project, seems to me that both towns would talk to each other somewhat, you know what I'm saying? Because you're kind of hand in hand. I just thought that, if you have the same business coming in, you would think that it would be easier for both towns to figure out what was going on in.
There's one turbine, I think, Site A, that is proposed in Newfield, I would guess if they have a moratorium, or if they say no, or if it's not feasible, then that was one of two possible, there's
Three sites with two turbines.
Three sites with two, yes, thank you. 3 sites with 2 turbines. That means that if they can't do it in Newfield, then it would be likely site B and C, which are in Enfield.
We're waiting today for this process to go through, so I don't wanna speak about where we're gonna put the turbines.
Well, he was
Well,
fairly
it's kind of a big
categorical that they
deal.
weren't going to do it.
I don't necessarily speak for the board, I'm on the board, but Henry
Well, do you
knows
know
about
where
another meeting, you know.
Yes,
You
we
know
know,
what
it's
they're
in the
planning?
plan.
What's that?
It's in, yes, we know, it's in the plan, it's on the map.
And that's the map that everybody has.
Yeah, it's part of the.
There are 3 sightings for 2 towns.
Everybody has. And clearly shows in the map, locations A, B, and C.
And then to this, so that turbines on John Strait's land, in part of his property that's in Newfield. The substation's on John Strait's land, and the part of the land that he owns in Enfield. And then, at the moment, because other landowners are unwilling, the only access that Black Oak has to the substation is to go through John Strait's land. In the Newfield part, John Strait's land, they can't access it through their gas
Yeah.
I know I probably opened up a can of worms by having the public meeting, but I think, and, you know, the town board kind of gets roasted in these, but I think it's an important part of the process. I would just caution, don't demonize people or you know, personal attacks.
I think this kind of thing will reduce that kind of thing because people will have an outlet.
The board may not always agree, you may not always agree as a particular person who follows that. There's 5 board members.
How about a wind farm and resident soccer game? You can just go out and play and meet families with each other.
There we go. I'll have to really brush up on my soccer.
We used to do that
My
back
health
when we
and
were in
safety
Enfield.
would be at risk.
Oh, okay. Paintball. Should we,
Motion to adjourn?
Let's do it.
Thank you. Alan went home, I can't believe it.
Thank you for having the after. I think that a lot of frustration gets out, and I think that there's more understanding possibly of a question I might have. So, but what you just heard, you have no say. Whatever. You just listen.
Turn this off.
Oh, yeah.